Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. I just got back from Oshkosh. I haven't unpacked entirely, so ignore everything going on back there. I understand it's an absolute disaster, but that doesn't mean that the mock check ride stopped. That doesn't mean that we stopped teaching. That doesn't mean that we stop learning just because I have to unpack my life after spending a week camping. That means that I have to deal with that at a later date because y'all still need to learn. Y'all still need taught. Y'all still need more information. And this next mock check ride is actually really interesting. This guy's got his own YouTube channel, so I'll make sure to tag him down in the comments below or in the little description thing. He's got like 70,000 followers. So go check him out. The only problem is none of his content's in English. So you might see this video over on his channel translated to his native language. But he actually came over to the United States on a green card lottery about 8 years ago from across the pond and started out as a poker dealer in Vegas, then went to truck driving. And now, after owning his own truck driving school or truck driving company and being a poker dealer in Vegas, he's now becoming a pilot. Talk about a wide range of skills and career options for this guy. But he actually did really well. He's got a lot of cool stories about his training. So let's go check out the mock check ride. So before we get going, I always like to ask, are you okay with me recording this to be used for social media, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, yes, Instagram, etc.? Awesome. Yes. So I know we just had a little bit of a conversation about what kind of led you to this point. But that was before we hit the record button. So, how many hours are you at? What kind of led you into aviation? What are you doing at this point?
Okay, my name is Alexander. I came to United States like 8 years ago, winning a green card. I'm one of those lucky guys that won a green card and just came over here. Started with Las Vegas because before coming to United States, I was in a company that were organizing the poker tournaments inside our countries and outside, actually. I came from Republic of Moldova, but we were doing poker tournaments, like huge events across the ex-USSR countries like Ukraine, Georgia. We also had series in Montenegro, Cyprus, and stuff like that. So I came and I started right away from Las Vegas because I was familiar with everything, and I decided to build my career same way in the poker industry. But then spending 2 years working at the Bellagio as a poker dealer, I was promoted to a floor manager, but decided not to go to because it's less money and much more responsibilities over there. Because when you are a dealer, you just deal the cards and you just sit, and every 2 hours you have a break. You don't have any responsibilities, any mistakes, floor comes and solve the problems. So you basically doing nothing, just deal the cards and have your money always in the pocket because you work for tips. And every time you will go back home, you have money in the pocket. But the floor manager works for salaries mostly. So they just receive salary every paycheck every 2 weeks. And you have a lot of responsibilities and you're running on your feet all of the day round without any big breaks and stuff. So I decided not to. And then my good friend, he was a truck driver, and he said why don't you try it? Just let's go jump into the truck, receive your CDL. You're going to make some good money. You're going to see the country. That's what I was doing until now. So I had a small company, my own trucking company, but I decided to stop doing this because right now the industry is kind of going like this. Yeah. And decided just to go somewhere else, and aviation was always my passion, and I was watching the aviation videos. Especially I'm a big fan of air crash investigation channel, so I watched a lot of those videos in English and Russian as well. So I decided I want to give it a try. I can always come back. When I said I was jumping to the truck, I said, I can always come back and deal cards. Now I can always come back and drive the truck, but I don't want to. So right now it's new step. Let's go and see what's happens. Let's say it like this. I'm 40 years old. It's still good for me to start a career. It's still up to 65 years old, as long as the health permits. Right now, before I went to school, I decided to go to Part 61. I made a huge research, and the first step, I just did my medical exam. So I went to the doctor, made a class 1 medical exam, passed it with no problems, and then I decided, okay, now I have to select the school. I have to do the researches. I scroll through the internet, did a lot of research. I found a lot of YouTube vloggers that gave a bunch of information. So that's why I decided to go with a Part 61 school. I found a really nice school close to my house, which is probably 20 minutes away from me. We have a lot of airports over here in the area. I live close to Miami. So we have a bunch of airports over here, and you can fly all the year round because the weather permits most the time of the year. Right now, it's not the best time because we have a bunch of thunderstorms, hurricanes, and stuff. It's a hurricane season right now. But during the winter time, it's amazing to fly over here. That's what my instructor says. So I found the school. I already start preparing myself with the ground schools, watching the ground schools. I bought a Glame Aviation preparation test, which is a very nice software. I can recommend it definitely for everyone. And I did my written test, and I believe I'm 88%. So I missed 7 questions. Those questions mostly were kind of tricky when you don't know the answer for 100% sure, but you have 2 of those 3 that you think are correct, but you have select only 1. So you're it's like a coin flip for yourself.
Exactly.
So for example, one of the questions that I missed was a question about the sign that you have in your chart, the parachute sign, the parachute jumpers. And it says, where can you find the information? And 2 of those 3 answers were chart supplement or NOTAMs. I know that the NOTAMs, you can find the information in NOTAMs for sure. Chart supplement, yes, the chart supplement as well. So I decided to go which one should I go? And I went with the NOTAMs, which was incorrect. But it's correct, but it was an incorrect answer. And that's why I have those kind of 7 answers that I did incorrect.
Yeah, and I mean those ones are so frustrating. Because NOTAMs, you are correct. You are going to find parachute operations in the NOTAMs, but where is it going to happen permanently, kind of thing? Where are you going to get this information permanently? So awesome. It definitely seems like you've prepared. You said, I think I remember you saying you're at about 43 hours or so. You soloed at about 14.
Right now I have 43 hours of flying, and 2 of those hours actually are the hours of my discovery flights. So before I went to school, I made a discovery flight. First of all, I started with a personal instructor that has his own airplane, and he just instructs on his airplane. But he's also an airline pilot. He flies for JetBlue, so he kind of limited in time, and I have to make my schedule based on his schedule, which was kind of uncomfortable for me. So I found a good Part 61 school that allows you to fly. They have 7 or 8 airplanes, and you can select any one you want. And also, they have a good policy on selecting the instructor. If you don't like the instructor, just tell us. We're going to switch it like this. If you don't like something, say something. We're going to do. So you are the boss. That's what they told me. And actually, this is a very nice school. I love it so far, and everything pretty smooth. And I love my instructor. And so right now, in 43 hours, 2 of which are my
they're pre-instruction kind of hours.
Yeah. So I did 1 hour of the discovery flight with the flight instructor, and then I did a 1 hour discovery flight with the school. And I decided to go with the school because it was actually also cheaper and faster for me and easier for me, and I love the way they do their business.
Yeah,
and so these 2 hours are not locked as preparation hours. They're just a discovery flight. But during the discovery flights, they gave me the right to feel the airplane, do the maneuvers, the simple one, the turns, do the turns, do this, explain me what the rudder did, what this did, how do you have to do the smooth turns, why do you have to use the rudders. and stuff like that. So it was kind of not only like a joyful flight, but it also was like a preparation flight. So
Yep.
you had an idea how the airplane works.
Yep.
And
Those are called aerodynamics demos. Any flight instructor worth their salt is going to do an aerodynamics demo. Instead, because I mean, a lot of people think of discovery flights as almost like tours, you know, and then when they actually learn a thing or two, they're like, oh shit, like flying an airplane isn't just getting up there and wiggling sticks. Like you actually have to know things. And that's so, but to go back to your comment on, you know, your flight school telling you that like you're the boss. If you run into problems, say something. If you don't like your instructor, say something. Even if your flight school, you know, people watching, even if your flight school doesn't necessarily say that policy out loud, that's the same thing for any student. You don't like your instructor, say so. Don't be a dick about it. But like, if you and your instructor aren't jiving, aren't vibing together, say something. Be like, hey, I'm not learning from this person. I'm not necessarily, we're not on the same wavelength. Can I get a different instructor? Say so. I have had students that I just don't work well with, not because there's anything wrong with either of us. We just don't work well together. And I have gone and found them new instructors because, again, you're the boss. You're paying my bills. You're putting bread on my table. I'm going to make sure you have an instructor that's going to provide you the instruction that you're paying for.
Yeah, I love my instructor. He's a very nice guy, and he knows what he is doing, even though he is a Indian guy. So we kind of I am kind of struggling sometimes with his accent, but you can always ask. Like if you don't understand something, you just ask about it, and he's like, "Ah, okay, got it. Right now I have it."
Yep.
So I also have an accent because English is not my primary language, and I'm still learning. Living in the United States for 8 years, I'm already a citizen. So yeah, I'm still learning every day, and sometimes I forgot words, and I have to go and look in the translator what this word means, or like if I want to tell something, I'm trying to find these words in my head, and like I still have to go and translate it. But yeah. The instructor is amazing. He got about like 1,200 hours, and he was only flying as a flight instructor mostly all his hours. After finishing the CFI, he became a flight instructor, so he already graduated a lot of students. And the good thing that I like about this instructor, he is the best instructor in the school, and his students usually pass with like 95%. Like maybe one of tens or even less did not give their check right from the first time.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty high number. I think the national average for private pilot is something like 70% first try pass rate. So when an instructor's got over a 90% first try pass rate, that is a big deal. I know I've maintained well over a 90% first try pass rate, and even these mock check rides, I think only one student didn't make it through, and it wasn't on the oral portion. So I still call that a win. But let's get moving on. I've got a little script that I go through just to kind of check all the boxes to make sure you've got the right idea going forward. Every check ride, there's 3 possible outcomes. There's satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory is consistently within inside the standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't momentarily fall outside the standards. It just means that you are inside the standards, and if you fall outside, you apply a prompt and appropriate correction to get back within the standards. So I use steep turns for an example. If you drop 10 knots slow, you recognize it. I always say verbalize it as well, because if you're doing dumb things in the airplane and not saying that you recognize the dumb things, the DPE is just going to assume you're intentionally doing dumb things, right? So if you drop 10 knots slow outside the standards, hey, I'm slow. I'm going to apply 200 RPM to try and correct that slowness. Hey, I'm low. I'm going to apply some power, drop a little bit of bank to correct that. But even on the oral portion, the expectation is not perfection. It's not, I know the answer to everything. It is, I know the answer to most things, and I'm able to look up the answers I don't know. And that is through source material, not through study guides. I know a lot of students, they get study guides from their buddies, especially at big schools. And then they use the study guide as their reference material. And as soon as they get asked one question a little bit deeper than that study guide provides, they have no idea where to look it up. Then we got...
Yeah, I have this kind of study guide.
Yeah. So, I mean, study guides are I usually don't recommend them unless they provide the direct source. Like there's an IFR study guide, the IFR Cafe study guide. I recommend that one because it actually provides the sources, like check 91205 Delta 2 for the grab card acronym, right? And those are the study guides I recommend. When you look at some of the other ones that are out there on the market, they just provide you an answer and say, there you go, instead of telling you where you can find that information. But then we've got unsatisfactory. That's something nobody ever wants to hear on a check ride, but it does happen. I have had an unsatisfactory on one of my stage checks. It sucked. But the big thing is, what did you learn from it? What did you gain from it? And how did you become a better pilot because of it? What did you recognize that you did wrong? How did you fail? Not how did your instructor fail? Not how big of a dick the DPE was, but what went wrong? Believe me, you hear it and you're just like, But just keep that in mind, right? But this is consistently outside of the standards. The examiner has to take control of the aircraft. You have to look up every answer. You're a danger to the National Airspace System, pilot deviations, things like that. Then there's incomplete. If you want to look up the reasons for an incomplete, you're looking at 6143 Bravo. That's the regulation. And it's things like weather, illness, ran out of time, aircraft airworthiness. Okay. The last thing a DP is going to ask before you get any farther is, have you read the ACS and you understand the standards you're being held to? Yes? Awesome.
Yeah, of course.
You'd be surprised the amount of students that haven't read the ACS by the time they show up to their check ride. I'm not going to lie. I was one of them. I got to my private pilot check ride. I didn't even know what the ACS was. I was just like, I have memorized everything. But now as an instructor, I try to make sure all of my students have read through the ACS. Part of my check ride prep that we actually go through the ACS and break down each maneuver individually. Now, what kind of documents do you need to bring to your check ride to make sure that everything goes smoothly?
Okay, I need to have a student certificate, pilot certificate. I need to have a government issued photo ID, which is like my driver license. And I need to have my logbook with the endorsement from my CFI.
Okay.
And my medical exam.
And your medical certificate, yes.
Medical certificate.
Now, if you ever do a check ride outside of your school, I always recommend bringing your maintenance logbook as well, because the DPE wants to make sure that this aircraft's airworthy, right? They want to make sure.
Actually, those DPEs kind of work with the school. This is one of the reasons actually why I also selected the school, because it's kind of hard to find a free time for any DPE in the area to make your make the exam happen. So that was one of the reasons, because this kind of school that is located in the airport, they have several DPEs that only specifically works with those schools that are located at the airport. So they schedule the DPEs in about like a week or so. So when you are ready, in a week, you're going to have the exam. If you fail the exam in a week, you can already have the re-examination. Because I know the people struggling and waiting for like months and months for their exam, and in case of the scenario that the exam didn't happen, for example, like a weather reason or any other reason, they still have to wait for months and months again to pass their exam, which actually I don't want to. Yeah. So the DP actually flies on those aircrafts all the time, one of those DPs. So when I will be on my exam, they don't even require you to bring those paperwork, because they already know those paperwork better than I do, because they see them every day.
Yep. All right. Awesome. That is awesome. I know I went to go take a check ride in my personal aircraft because I have a seaplane, and I went to go get my seaplane rating in my airplane. I forgot the maintenance log at home, but I had digitized the maintenance log, a while back, so I could, I could be like, oh wait, look, I've got pictures here, and he's like, oh okay, because that would have sucked, because I would have flown all the way out there, and then because the DPE was like a 2.5 hour flight away and whatnot, it was sucked. But I always like to dig into systems, because if you don't know your airplane, it's not going to go that well for the rest of the check ride, right? So we'll start with the simple stuff, and then we'll dig a little bit deeper and see where the knowledge ends. What can you tell me about the power plant in this aircraft?
So the engine, we use acronym 4LHAND. I have a Lycoming engine, 4 cylinders, 4 strokes. They are, and then it's horizontally opposed. And then it's naturally aspirated. That's air cooled, and actually, yes, air cooled, and it's direct driven.
Yep, it's direct driven. Now, what does direct driven mean?
Means that the prop is mounted to the shaft, so we don't have any gearbox.
Yep, there is absolutely.
So the as much RPMs we have on the engine, that much RPMs we have on the prop.
Oh, exactly. How much power does this thing generate?
180 horsepower.
180 horsepower. Now, let's say we took this airplane up to Colorado. If you don't know Colorado, it's got some higher elevation. I mean, you're a truck driver, so you know. Let's say we took this aircraft to Colorado. Are we going to generate 180 horsepower?
No, because we are losing horsepower with the density altitude.
Yep, exactly.
And also we're losing with with the humidity as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there anything that, like, let's say I owned this airplane, I hit the lottery, and I wanted to do some nice upgrades to it. Is there anything I could put on this airplane? Anything that I could upgrade that would prevent that power loss at altitude?
Probably turbocharger.
Turbocharger, right? Would we still call this thing naturally aspirated if it was turbocharged?
No. It's going to be a turboprop.
Not a turboprop.
No.
No, turboprop is a turbine engine with a propeller attached to it.
Okay, got it.
Right.
So different kind of system.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Turboprop is like a King Air, or like a Pilatus. Okay. Turbocharged would be like a Mooney or a Bonanza.
Okay.
I think you can technically get this. I think there is a turbocharger kit for a Cherokee 181. Now, there's two different types of turbochargers we could throw on these things. Do you know what they are?
No.
So we could do turbo normalized and turbocharged. Turbo normalized just maintains atmospheric pressure as we climb. Turbocharged actually gives us more than atmospheric pressure on the ground and eventually reduces to atmospheric pressure at altitude. That is a bit deeper than what a private pilot check ride would go through. But we found where the knowledge ended.
Yeah.
And that's very normal on a check ride, especially when you're getting these answers so well. The DP will keep asking until they find the bottom. Right? Because we want to make sure that you're not going to make shit up. That's really...
Yeah, and I also know the rule that you have to answer only like for the question and just stop when you just finish it. Do not go deeper because then you will provide more questions.
Yep. The phrase I like to use is never miss an opportunity to shut up.
Which is hard for me, actually. I'm a talking person.
Oh, you're fine. Awesome. Now let's dig into your landing gear. What are you looking for on your landing gear when you're doing your pre-flight?
Okay, yeah. So I have 3 landing gears. Actually, it's like main landing gears. If we're talking about like 3, but it's 2. So first is like a main one, which I have 2 on my wings, and the one is in the front, which is like a steering landing gear. That mostly it doesn't have brakes, but it just steers the aircraft. My main landing gears got the brakes. It's a hydraulic braking system. We have a red hydraulic fluid inside, and I should actually check for the leaking from the system before I go to fly. And also we have shock absorbers. I always check the shock absorbers if they are at least like 3 fingers, so 3 inches high. If not, I'm not gonna go fly. And I also check the brakes. So brakes, the tires and stuff. So brakes, we have disc brakes with 2 braking pads on it. And what else? And I also have to check the pins if the safety pins are installed in place. So
awesome.
we're not gonna lose anything, and especially we're not gonna lose our wheels.
Awesome. The only part that's a little incorrect, your nose gear with normal, your nose gear with normal extension is 3 1/4 inches. Your main gear is 4 1/2 inches, right? So if all you saw was 3 fingers or 3 inches on your main gears, that would technically be below their limits, and they would need to be charged. So I'd just add that little caveat. If you're looking at your POH, it's page 235 in the PDF. If you're looking for the actual like physical POH, page 7-3. That's just the only little bits. The only reason I bring it up is because you called out the number specifically. It's good to know the number specifically, especially on something with oleo struts. to make sure that they're not going to bottom out when you land. Right.
Okay.
Awesome. Now let's get into some flight controls. What are your primary flight controls on this aircraft?
Ailerons, also elevator, and ailerons, elevator, and rudders.
All right. Want to make sure. So, do you have an elevator on this aircraft, or do you have the other? So, do you know the difference between an elevator and a stabilator?
No.
No. So, elevator, all right, is attached to a fixed horizontal stabilizer. Okay. So, a fixed horizontal stabilizer, meaning, have you ever flown a Cessna?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you notice how on a Cessna, the tail, the horizontal portion of the tail, stays put other than the control surface on the back. You notice on your aircraft, that whole horizontal portion moves.
Back and forth.
That's the big difference between a stabilator and an elevator. Okay. What you're using or what you're moving on a stabilator is actually the tab at the end of it. When you pull back on that stick, you're moving the tab on the end of it. And the forces that are generating from moving that tab is what's deflecting the whole control surface. Okay. So that's the big difference between an elevator and a stabilator. A stabilator should be lighter in the hands because you're moving a smaller control surface.
Okay. So I do have an elevator.
Okay. So you do have an elevator. Because I'm reading through your POH and I'm seeing a horizontal tail stabilator is an all movable slab type trim tabs mounted on the trailing edge of a stabilator to reduce control system forces. That's what I'm reading in your POH. If yours is different than the digital POH that I've got, then it could be different.
It's the same.
Okay. Now, we talked about your engine a little bit. You did say that it was carbureted, right?
Yes.
Now, what are some of the downsides of having that carbureted engine?
Carburetor icing.
Okay, so carburetor icing is a possibility. How would you identify carburetor icing?
Roughness on the engine, drop of RPMs.
Okay. Is this going to happen like immediately?
No, it's going to be going worse and worse because the icing builds up in the carburetor. Mm-hmm. And usually you can also understand that you have carburetor icing, especially here in Florida when you have a high humidity and temperature below 80 degrees.
Awesome. That was the follow-up question was what kind of temperature, what kind of environmental conditions would you expect carburetor icing? How do you fix carburetor icing?
Carb heat on.
Okay. Where does that heat come from?
The heat come from, this is a good question. So I have no a kind of good answer for that. So I know that it's supposed to build heat to the carburetor to melt the ice. But where it comes from the engine probably.
So there are a couple different carburetor heat systems. You could have an electric carburetor heater. And that's why I asked the question is because if you have an electric carburetor heater, if your alternator's dead, is that an option? Well, you don't have an electric carburetor heater. Your carburetor heat comes from the same place as your cabin heat. So where does your cabin heat come from?
Oh, okay. The cabin heat come from the exhaust, like we have an exhaust system and we have the thing that build up on top of the exhaust system that gets the air from the outside. And then when it gets through this thing that builds on an exhaust system, it actually heats from the exhaust system. And then it just goes inside to the cabin.
Okay. And the same place from that same system, your carburetor will pull heat from.
All right.
Why don't I use carburetor? Why is it a bad idea to use carburetor heat on the ground?
Because you lose power.
Well, it's loss of power. Also, it's not filtered.
Okay.
Right? It's not filtered. That's why you normally get rid of the carburetor heat on final if you do use it, right?
I do use it.
Yep.
Actually, it's not necessary in Florida as well because we don't have this kind of low temperature when you go on your final, especially in the winter time. We have 90 degrees outside, which that kind of can't build any icing. And so I know that I actually flew with another DP when my DP was CFI. That when my CFI was sick, and the other CFI told me, "Oh, you can just forget about the carb heat. We don't need it for landing. Just don't waste time." And when I get back with my CFI, he said like, no, this is a bullshit, because like if you will not do it here, probably you will go somewhere else what is going to be necessary, and you will just forget about it.
Exactly.
And that's going to like cause a lot of problems for you.
Yep. Build up good
especially
habits
on the finals.
Yep. Because like honestly, what's the worst thing that happens if you use carburetor heat when you don't need it? Nothing.
Well, that you can lose the engine probably.
Well, if you use carburetor heat when you don't really need it, you're going to lose a little bit of performance. You got hot air. You end up a little too rich. So you might end up fouling your plugs slightly. You're not going to die, but if you don't use carburetor heat when you do need it, you could very likely lose your engine. Awesome. Now, have you ever driven a carbureted car?
Yes.
Right.
Because like it wasn't like that I was driving it for a long period of time, but when I was doing my car fouling, because I was a car fouler for probably more than a year, and I did a car fouling for enclosed trailer, when you usually have those kind of super expensive cars, and sometimes you have those crazy carbureted like old timers, which are like beautiful and very expensive ones. When like you see once in a lifetime, you don't even know that those kind of cars do exist.
Yep.
And they are carbureted because they are kind of old timers. Yep. Yes, I did couple times, but not like most of the times. Yes. And my granddad had a carbureted car as well.
All right. So you notice like when your grandpa, when he started his car, he had to pump the gas probably about once or twice before he started.
A primer.
Yep. So why do we use a primer in an airplane as opposed to just pumping the throttle? Like what's the point of using the primer? Why can't I just pump the throttle and that'll do the same thing, won't it?
Well, we use a primer, as my CFI explained that to me. So we actually don't use the primer over here. So we have to use it when it's cold outside. Mm-hmm. So we have to prime some fuel inside the engine. Okay. So it will start smoothly. But actually what we do, we just prime with a throttle. But like only a couple times, because we don't want to overflow it.
Well, so I generally recommend against doing that. There's a couple pipers every year that burn down from doing stuff like that. Do you know why?
Because when you like over pump it, it can start leaking. Yep. And then the fire can just build the fire because of that, because of the leak fuel.
Yeah. So here's your carburetor right here. So this is your fuel diagram. Right? Okay. If we were to look at your engine, okay, so we're going to look at your engine from the back. So we'll just say that this is your engine. Sorry, I went to the Helen Keller School of Art. I'm not going to draw very well, but here's our cylinders. Right. Here's our main, kind of our engine where our crankshaft sits, where the propeller's attached up there on the front. Our carburetor sits down here. Okay. So it sits underneath the engine. Okay. It's an upflow carburetor is what it's called, or an updraft carburetor. So when I pump the throttle, what ends up happening is fuel can end up right in here, and then it can drip right out into our cowling. So we end up with like a puddle of fuel down here on the bottom of our cowling, which is why I generally recommend against pumping the throttle. I know in Florida it's hot. The chance of having fuel pooling up anywhere is so minuscule. But again, now we're in the same kind of thought. Like if you do it wrong here, you're going to do it wrong elsewhere. Which is why, again, I generally recommend using the primer, because if we see the primer doesn't inject at our carburetor.
Yes, okay? It goes straight to the engine.
Yep, it goes straight up here into our cylinders, so it doesn't have the chance to kind of dribble out and pool up down here. Because if I have a bunch of fuel pulled up in the bottom of my cowling, what am I risking? A fire.
Yes.
Right. There's pipers that burn themselves down every year because people don't want to deal with the sticky primer. So do what you will with that information. If your DPEs are okay with you pumping the throttle, but just keep in mind that is an increased risk of fire doing it that way.
Yeah, especially for example, if you already pump it like for 3 times that we are doing, and then something disrupt you and you forgot that you already did it, you can do it 3 more times, and that may be enough.
Yep. So, do what you will with that. I recommend against it, but I am a instructor. I am not necessarily your instructor. That's kind of my.
I'm gonna discuss
I
it with
hate to
you.
say I hate to say way out of it if something goes wrong, but CYA, cover your own. I'll let the I'll let the viewers fill in the last one. So let's talk about a little bit more about your fuel system. How much fuel can this thing carry?
50 gallons, but usable is only 48. So we have 1 gallon in each tank that are like unusable. They just sit in the system and not drain. So we have 48 gallons in both tanks. So it's 24 and 24.
Okay, awesome. Now, well, you already answered it. Why we have unusable. Now, is that fuel, that unusable fuel, is that counted in your basic empty weight?
I think yes.
Yes, it is. Awesome. Those little questions that a lot of students are like, I don't know. But awesome. Let's talk about your electrical system. We didn't touch on it too much. I'm not asking you to design the airplane. Okay. But tell me kind of a brief overview of your electrical system.
Okay, so we have an electrical system, 14 volts electrical system, and we have a 12 volts battery. And also we have an alternator that charges the battery and provides like the power for the battery, 60 amp alternator.
Now, let's say you lost your alternator.
Which already happened, actually.
Oh, so you've already experienced
during
this.
Our flight. Yes, it happened during our flight.
Okay, so what do you do?
We did our maneuvers, and then we realized that we have the alt button over there that's light, and we have like an alt light over there pop up, and we're like, oh, looks like we have that alternator. We have to go back.
Okay, so you went back. You didn't just go, oh my God, we need to land. Now, let's say you were a little far away and your battery died. What are you going to lose? If you just completely lost everything.
It's an electric system. Everything was electrically powered, including the radio, which is like the worst thing that I can lose, like the radio. Radio, all the actually, as long as I have a G5, I'm going to lose the G5. Garmin's navigation, everything. So the only thing that's going to work is like whatever we have over there. The instruments that are not electrically powered. That's gonna stay there, and the engine is gonna be still running because the engine has their own separate system.
Right, and we'll talk about why the engine is going to stay running. Let's briefly touch back on those G5s. You said if that battery dies, my alternator dies. 45 minutes later, my main battery dies. My G5s are going to immediately die as well.
I think they have a mounted battery inside, so they're gonna still work for some period of time. I don't know for how long actually, but they're gonna still work. But what we did when we were out of the alternator, we actually turned everything off because we don't need it. We just notified the tower control that we may lose everything and we may lose a radio. So we need the priority on landing. They gave us the priority, and luckily we landed without losing everything. So we were still running on everything. So, but it took us about like 30 minutes to come back.
Okay. So if I remember correctly from the STC on a G5, those batteries are supposed to give you 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So if it's installed, have a good understanding of the system, right? Obviously, it's not going to be in the standard POH because it wasn't installed originally. It's going to be part of your supplemental type certificate. But if I remember reading them, because I'm just about to install G5s in my airplane. So I remember reading through my STC. And I think those batteries are supposed to give you about 4 hours.
I'm going to research.
Yeah.
For sure.
One of the big things that you're going to lose when you lose all your electrical system, though, is your stall indicator. You're not going to have any notification of stalling. So just
because it's electrical.
Yep. So just keep that one in mind. That would be like the one thing I might bring up. Like, hey, what systems are you going to lose? Like if the DPA asks, what systems are you going to lose if you lost your alternator, right? And your battery died. I'd probably say like everything electrical. I'm going to lose my radios. One of the big ones that might catch me off guard is my stall indicator also isn't going to work because because it functions electrically. Awesome. Now I'm happy with that. Pretty good understanding. The G5s, if you're going to talk about them, try to read about them before bringing them up on your check ride. Is really my little 2 cents on there. We talked about your heating and ventilation. This one doesn't have air conditioning, right?
No.
Nope. All right.
That which sucks.
Well, here's the thing: the air conditioning on these, if it is installed, the one time you can use it is cruise.
Yeah,
that's it. And by the time you get up to cruise, it's nice and cool up there anyway. So why are you gonna add the 2 gallons per hour burn to run an air conditioning? Yeah,
that's true. If it works this way, then yes, because usually you're struggling when you're on the ground.
Yep. And that's the thing is like I've never seen an aircraft with an air conditioner installed, like a general aviation aircraft with an air conditioner installed that you could use during takeoff. I think even the Cirrus, you can't use it during takeoff. And which is kind of funny, you spend $1.1 million for an aircraft with an air conditioner and you can't use it during the times that you really want to use it. All right. So now we're going to dig into the limitations of this aircraft. So we all know that every aircraft has limitations, and that's one of the most important things to really cover and learn every time you're switching between airplanes. So this isn't just, I'm going to learn the limitations for my aircraft as I'm going through training, and then as I continue on or I buy my own airplane or what have you, I can just kind of meh about it because no one's ever going to ask me about it. Nope. You definitely need to have your limitations memorized, especially when you have an aircraft that's got weird limitations. I'm going to use mine for an example. My aircraft has an oil pressure limitation that is 10 psi higher than a bunch of the other serial numbers of my aircraft because they did something slightly different with the engine. But the gauges that were installed still flash red saying you are exceeding that limitation during its normal operation because they put the same panel in all these airplanes. So knowing your limitations are important. But let's get into the airspeed limitations right off the bat. What speed should this aircraft never exceed?
154.
154. Now, let's say I am in smooth, or I am not in smooth air, right? I've got a little bit of bumps, a little bit of turbulence. What is the speed I shouldn't exceed?
Well, we have this normal operation speed 125, but like 125, I believe this is going to be the maximum one.
Yep. So NO, a lot of people call it the normal operation speed because it's a really easy way to memorize it, right? It's a decent mnemonic.
Right.
VNO. What your aircraft actually refers to it as is its maximum structural cruising speed. What I would take as like a more appropriate response, if you want to use that NO mnemonic, is your normal operation limit. Because that's really what it is. VNO would be your normal operation limit because above this is your cautionary range, right?
Yes.
So that's just my 2 cents on it. I know a lot of instructors like that normal operation mnemonic to memorize VNO. It's a little incorrect. Okay.
So if you add limits at the end of it, it becomes correct.
Yeah, because that's really what it's delineating. It's not delineating your normal operation speed because especially in a Cherokee, we're not normally cruising around at 125, right?
My cruising speed is about like 100.
Exactly, right? If we really wanted to say normal operation speed, I'd be like 105. But our normal operation limit, where we got to start being cautious, would be 125. So you see how just adding the word limit to the end makes it fully correct as opposed to just close enough to probably make it. Now, what is maneuvering speed? Not necessarily what is the number, but just what does it mean to you? What does maneuvering speed mean to you?
Which is a VA.
Yes, VA.
113. Yes, it's a 113. So it's the maximum speed that you can perform the maneuvers.
So that's not really what it is. Maneuvering speed is the speed at which I can apply one swift full control deflection without damaging the aircraft.
Mhm.
Okay. I could technically do steep turns at 125 knots as long as I don't exceed my G limit.
1G limit, right?
Right. So what's our G limit in this normal operation category? It's the same for every airplane. 3.8. 3.8 Gs. Yep.
Okay.
When you normally do steep turns, you're normally pulling about 1.4.
Okay.
Okay. So I mean, I could do maneuvers above maneuvering speed. So it is not the limit in which I can do steep turns. It's not the limit. There are recommended speeds for these maneuvers in your POH, but it's not a limit. It is the limit for when I can apply a full swift control deflection. Okay.
Okay.
And I won't damage the airplane. Now, as my weight goes down, what does my maneuvering speed do? Does it go up or down?
It goes down.
It goes down with weight. Do you understand why?
Well, the more weight we have, the more speed we need to do the maneuvers.
Yeah, so the more weight we have, the more speed we need to generate lift, meaning that our available lift or the amount of acceleration we can apply to the aircraft
Because actually,
isn't
when
as
we're
great.
doing, for example, the steep turn, we're losing the lift.
Yep. So yeah, what your POH says is maneuvering speed decreases at lighter weight as the effects of aerodynamic forces become more pronounced. Linear interpolation may be used. It really just says it's easier to move a feather than it is a rock. So if I apply the same force to a feather, I'm probably going to break it, as opposed to if I apply that force to a rock or a heavier airplane, I'm less likely to break it. Now, what is the bottom of your green arc telling you on your speed tape?
So like it's a smaller limit. The bottom of the green arc, it's our like a stall speed.
Stall speed in what configuration?
Of the green one, I think it's not landing configuration. So it's everything off.
Yep, everything up. Awesome. Cruise configuration, it would be our VS, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
So it's a VS, VSO is the landing configuration.
Yep. And when you start getting into more complex aircraft, you'll get more VS. You'll get like VS1, VS2, VS1S. But that's like Airbus and type ratings and stuff like that.
Yes.
So a couple more ratings from now. Awesome. What's the max weight for this aircraft?
I have to memorize it. I don't remember the number. I have to go to the POH. I know where to look at it. Like I go to POH and I can just easily find it over there if I need it.
Yep.
Yeah, and still when I do the weight and balance, I have this the balance envelope and I have the weight over there. So before a flight, I just go with weight and balance and just do all the calculations over there, and I see if I'm like inside the envelope.
Okay. Now, since you brought up CG, let's talk about it a little bit. If I have a CG that's just right at my forward limit, right? Not outside of my limit, just at my forward limit. What are the benefits of having a CG really far forward?
The benefits of having it less than the limit?
Yeah, so let's say the limit of my CG is from here to here. Okay.
So it's like a front CG.
Yeah, so my CG is right here at its forward limit, its front limit.
So it means the airplane is just gonna go down like this. So you will have to apply more power on the yoke just to bring the nose up. So that makes it more stable, because it's not like when it's aft it goes like this, so then it's less stable. So like this, it's more stable. So it's more stable, and you need like your how do you say Stall. You can stall at higher speed. So you need the higher speed to stall. In that case.
Yep. Most forward
higher
CG
speed to stall, and it's easier to recover from the stall because your nose is already going down.
Exactly. That's really a lot of good takeaways of a forward limit. What are some of the downsides?
The downside. I know that the aft one has the downsides, but like, what's the front ones?
Yeah, so let's. I'm gonna open up Microsoft Paint real quick, and we'll
okay.
We'll go through it. Okay, so here's Microsoft Paint. These pictures are going to be rough, so stay with me. All right. Let's get. I like this one more. There we go. So we've got our airplane, right? So we've got a tail, got a horizontal stabilizer, we've got a wing, and we've got an engine. Okay. I know. Roll with me on it.
This is a submarine.
Yeah, sure. So our wing, what does it generate? It generates lift, right?
Yes.
So as our wing generates lift, what else does it generate?
Drag.
It generates drag as well. So what does our tail generate? Is it lift or downforce?
Downforce.
It is downforce, right? So our tail generates downforce. All right. So if I've got a CG like back here at my limit, right? Then my tail doesn't have to work very hard. So it generates a little bit of drag because the tail doesn't have to work very hard. But if I go ahead and I move my CG way up here, let me grab a different color. If I move my CG like way up here, my tail now has to work so hard to keep that nose up. It's going to generate so much more drag.
Okay, so it's going to be a lower cruise speed.
Yep, lower cruise speed, higher fuel consumption.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, right? Lower cruise speed, higher fuel consumption. Yeah. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. Right? So this is why we really care about where our CG is placed. So if I'm going on like a long cross country and I'm just trying to get there, I'm going to try and shove all my bags back here in the back, in my baggage area. Your airplane, how much stuff can I throw in this baggage compartment? How many pounds? No, awesome. 200 pounds worth of garbage. So that's really why we care about where our CG is. We're not just worried about placement of it being within the envelope, but let's try and make it, beneficial within that envelope. Right?
Yep.
Awesome. Let's see if there's anything weird. Nope, nothing weird in that limitation section. Now, let's get into some emergencies. Now, your airplane doesn't specifically call out memory items. Okay. Now, you might have memory items via your checklist, but what I've got right in front of me doesn't specifically call out anything with memory items. And I'm going to reference the checklist can be an appropriate response if you've got time. But the things...
Actually, let me grab the checklist.
Mm-hmm.
So this checklist, which I have over here for Archer 2 as well. So actually, it's made for Archer 2. Over here on the back side of it, I think I'm going to show it right now.
Yeah.
So over here, what we have is we have power loss immediately after takeoff with no restart. Power loss in flight. If no restart, time permits, what you have to do: electrical fire in flight, engine fire in flight, engine fire during start, icing, and other. But imagine you have an engine fire during start. Would you just go and grab the checklist and see, okay, what we have to do over here? You're going to burn inside the aircraft.
Exactly.
That's what we were doing with our my CFI during our check ride preparation. And he said, okay, now we have an engine failure. What you going to do? And I said, I'm going to grab the checklist. And he said, all right, let's go. And
Yeah.
I grab the checklist and start like, okay, power loss. Okay, what we have, engine fire. No, it's not right. Power loss in flight. Okay, no restart. Well, okay, and now when I was start reading this, we already lost like 500 feet. And he said, okay, now you still have the time to read it? No, like.
So this is why I like things like fires and then a flow to try and get your engine back during an engine failure. All right. I like the ABCs of engine failures. All right. So airspeed, best place to land. And then C is like checklist flow. So airspeed, right? We're going to aim for what airspeed are we going to aim for if we have a
76.
powerless in flight? Awesome. And then B, best place to land. Let's say we're looking at a farm field that they just tilled it, right? So we've got all those rows. Are we going to land with the rows or against the rows?
No, not against, of course.
Yep, not against them. We're going to land with them. Now, if I'm
going to be too bumpy.
yeah. Now, if I'm looking at a brown field, right? I'm looking at two brown fields. One's a light brown and one's a dark brown. Which one am I going to try and land in?
Dark brown.
So the dark brown one's probably been watered. It's muddy.
Oh, in that case, I thought like the other things. I thought like the dark brown is already like a sun dried. That's why, like it's mostly like a dried field.
You know, and it might depend on where you're training at, but up here in Wisconsin, a dark brown field has either just been watered or it's just been sprayed with manure, and I don't want to land in that.
Right. Makes sense. Okay.
I don't want to land in a field that's just been sprayed with manure. It smells bad enough from the run or from the roads. I don't want to have to walk through that after an airplane crash.
Yeah, I've been to Wisconsin, and I actually like when I was driving the truck. And mostly the biggest product from Wisconsin is a cheese that we grab from there.
Cheese Pilot. You get it now? Yeah. Awesome. Now, since you did bring up engine fire during start, what are you going to do if your engine catches fire during a start?
Okay, so we have to continue cranking it so we can burn the fuel. And we have to turn off our the fuel selector to off, so we will not bring more fuel inside. Turn off the fuel pump for sure, and just continue cranking.
All right, now let's say
then fuel like the mixture full lean.
Okay. One other thing a lot of students forget: it's mixture lean throttle open.
Oh, throttle open, right?
Okay. My only gripe is the order in which it was done. Checklists are written in order for a reason. Keep cranking is obviously the first step. All right. The next step is mixture cutoff. Okay. We're trying to cut the fuel off at its source and work our way back. Okay. Mixture cutoff, that's the first source. That's going to stop that fuel immediately at the engine. Let's say that didn't work. Okay. We're going to go throttle full open, pump off, selector off. Because if we remember our fuel diagram, our pump is beyond our fuel selector.
Yes.
Okay. The big reason is like the fuel lines can be rubber in certain places. Rubber burns. So if I pull mixture out or I do fuel selector off or, something out of order, there could still be plenty of fuel in that line. Right. That's just my one gripe is the order in which we do it. Starter, keep cranking, mixture cut off, throttle full open, suck that fire into the engine, pump off, fuel selector off. At that point, the fire should go out. If it doesn't, I'm getting out of the airplane.
Evacuate, right?
Okay.
And extinguish.
Yeah, well, school's airplane. School's airplane. They have insurance.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
My airplane, yeah, I am fighting that fire like with the best of them. School's airplane, you got insurance. I'm kidding. Please give me a job at a school. No, I'm all jokes. Now, we talked about an alternator failure. We talked about icing. What are you going to do if you end up in a spin? I get that your aircraft's not certified for spins. Don't try it.
It's not even go to spins. My CFI told me that he tries to put my aircraft into a spin, and it was unsuccessful.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't recommend trying to spin an aircraft that's not certified for spins. I know of 2 instructors that died spinning a Seminole because they were like, this thing won't spin. And then they hit the ground at 6,000 feet per minute. So I definitely don't recommend exceeding an aircraft's limitations. But how do we recover from a spin?
Okay, first of all, we just let go controls. Our ailerons neutral. Then we just yoke full forward. So we just gain more speed, and then we're gonna go to idle, and then rudder full opposite
Okay.
to direction of spinning.
Okay, so again, order of things in which they're getting them done, right? Have you ever heard that acronym PAIR? PARE?
Yeah. So pair, yes.
Power, idle, ailerons, neutral. I wouldn't let go of the controls. The reason is your aircraft's not operating in a vacuum. Okay? There is air. There is air moving around your aircraft, and it can deflect your controls. So you don't let go. Okay? I know the joke for a lot of these training aircraft is let go and they'll recover them damn selves. I've actually gotten a Cessna stuck in a spin, and it's terrifying when it actually gets stuck in the spin because you're like, oh shit, I actually have to do these things. Instead of just like miming them. Because, when we went and did spin training, I was like, no, we are going to get into a spin. I don't want to do this incipient and recover nonsense. Let's spin this thing. And it's a different animal. So when we go to recover from a spin, it needs to be in order and deliberate. No letting go of controls. Okay. Power idle, ailerons neutral. Put them neutral. Don't let go of them and let them go neutral. Put them neutral. Rudder opposite rotation, then slam the yoke forward. Not just push it forward, slam it forward. Okay. And once rotation stops, then we're going to let go of the rudder, right? How do I know which rudder to press? You're saying rudder opposite of rotation, right? I'm assuming you've been on a roller coaster at least once in your life, right? How easy is it to tell which way that roller coaster is spinning you?
Well, if you are like inside, like and you are not with your eyes closed, when you can definitely see it where you're turning. For example, in the airplane is as well. I just watched some videos with when they perform the spin, and you can see where it goes, left or right.
The foolproof way that I really like is you kick the rudder that fights you. All right. And that is a foolproof way. Because if you end up in a spin, most people in general aviation airplanes, when they get into a spin, they're not doing it intentionally. Right? Unless it's part of their training. When it's a surprise, you could think, oh, just opposite rotation. I can look out the window. I'll be fine. Okay. Most of those videos that you're seeing, they're doing them from 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
Right? When you end up in a spin, where are you most likely going to enter a spin?
Yeah, from 2,000, like 3,000. When you like have the training.
Well, I'm saying accidentally. Where are you most likely going to enter a spin?
Performing the power off stall.
Well, power off stalls aren't something that we normally do, right?
Well,
training environment, right? What I'm talking about is once you are a private pilot and you're out there doing your thing, having fun, right? Your most likely entry into a spin is going to be a base to final turn with a crosswind.
Okay.
Right? What altitude are you normally at above the ground during a base to final turn?
800.
Yeah, 600-700 or so. So kick the rudder that fights back. Because it's less about staring at the ground going, oh yeah, I must be spinning to the left. If once you get to that point, you're going to be in the ground.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, getting into a spin when you're turning to your crosswind or a final is kind of, I don't think you're going to have time to recover.
I've seen, I know of an instructor that they made it through it. They had a student spin them on a base to final turn. And yeah, they recovered by kicking the rudder that fought them. You remember when you do stalls, right? And a wing drops. Do you use ailerons or do you use your rudder?
I use a rudder.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Okay. Same thing.
Especially when you do the power on stalls.
Yep.
Like it goes to the left all the time. Yep. You have to kick the right rudder.
Awesome. Now, last little bit of emergency before we start digging into other things. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do if you accidentally enter instrument conditions?
Turn back.
Okay.
180 degrees. Go back. If you just entered, probably you still have good weather. all the way back, just turn. That's like the first thing you have to do. In case if it won't work, like the weather becomes worse and worse, and like it's not gonna help you, then you just trying to find a best airport to land in a nearby area.
Okay.
If you can't, just go to 1 to 1.5 and declare the emergency that you are a VFR pilot and you are in IMC or like IFR already, and you need like help, and they will just provide you the instructions what to do. Where is it safe to land, and which direction should you go?
Awesome. 121.5 is an awesome option. Somebody will get a hold of you. It's up to you, right? You've got fancy avionics in your aircraft, right? You've got what GPS do you have?
It's a Garmin.
Okay.
And I also use a ForeFlight, which also have a GPS installed.
So your Garmin, does it have a touch screen?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever used the nearest function on it?
Yes.
All right.
Always.
So nearest, that the first one it brings you is nearest airports, right?
Yes.
If you keep scrolling, you can find nearest ARTCC, which is Air Radar Traffic Control Center. And they're going to be the closest person to you with a radar to give you instructions. So 121.5 will work. Not saying don't use it. Just saying nearest ARTCC is also an option. Okay.
I also have a ForeFlight with me. It's also like always working. I also have a huge charger because I don't have any 12 volts plug mounted inside my airplane, so I have to use like this chargers. And I also like always have the ForeFlight with me, so in case of emergency, I can always just look where I am at and just find the nearest airport, or you can just press on the ForeFlight on the place where you're at, and it shows you nearest, like nearest airport, nearest ADC, nearest I don't know, anything what you need, like VOR, and you just gonna press and see what's the nearest frequency that is available for you. And that's
sick.
So ForeFlight is amazing. Actually.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love ForeFlight, and it's awesome that you know how to do those things. A lot of students, they'll bring ForeFlight to their check ride and not know how to do a lot of things in it. So make sure you know how to get a weather briefing. Make sure you know how to do your weight and balance.
That's why I want to go with a ForeFlight today, because you don't have any videos with a ForeFlight, and I know that right now a lot of students comes with a ForeFlight and want to do the ForeFlight. And I actually know one of the students failed the check ride in our school because he came with a ForeFlight, and when the DPA start asking him, do you know how to check this or that? And he was like, not right now. And he said, okay, then we cannot continue because you don't know how to use a ForeFlight. And if you are going with a ForeFlight, you must know how to use it.
Exactly. So let me pull up. I actually have a fun little app that'll let me pull up my iPad on here. So let's grab it. If we want to go over ForeFlight, let's dig into ForeFlight. Okay.
I think we can go with a browser as well. You just can log into the browser with a ForeFlight, and it will pop up the same way.
I like the iPad because it's right here, because I can draw on it and everything.
Perfect. Yes, that is correct.
All right. So let's grab.
We'll use mine as well.
ForeFlight. Oh, that's not what I wanted. All right.
And ForeFlight is also amazing because you can have everything in one app. You don't have to use like the weather briefing somewhere outside. You don't have to use like the any other, like how to check the TFRs, how to check the NOTAMs. You just click on the area and it shows if it's active or not. If it's like you're allowed to go there or not, like what's the altitude of the area. For example, you're struggling with what's the ceiling or what's like the bottom of the area of the class Bravo, for example. You can click on it and it shows you. So it's amazing. You can and when you're flying with a ForeFlight, I also love the thing that it shows you the emergencies. Like you have an upcoming traffic, where the traffic is.
Yep.
And you shows that you are approaching class Charlie airspace, or you're approaching class Bravo airspace. Like, okay, you have to like be aware of it.
Exactly. All right. So I got ForeFlight pulled up. let me, yeah, I'll use that. Then
Okay, while you're
awesome.
doing
For
this, I'm
flight.
going to tell one more story
Go
that being
ahead.
told to me that in the other school, flight instructor been flying with the student, performing the maneuvers, and they accidentally got into the TFR when the Trump was president, and they have a TFR over his Mar-a-Lago over
Mhm.
there, and he accidentally flew inside, and he was surprised catching like some of the fighters that were just in front of him, waving with the wings, like forcing him to land. And now I know that he is still in trouble. He like his license wasn't suspended, but he was like put on like on a pause right now during the investigation. So he
Yeah.
kind of ruined everything. I
Yeah.
think with a fourth flight installed and all the TFRs, you can you like you may know where you're going and what's going on. And also, you have
Exactly.
the fuel prices. You have everything. So you can plan your cross country or any other trip with a fourth flight pretty easy, which is like, I love it.
Now, let's get into some airworthiness before we start getting into like for flight and everything.
All right.
What documents do you need to be in your aircraft for it to be airworthy?
Okay, we use the acronym ARROW for that. Airworthiness certificate and airworthiness directives. Also, we need registration, which is valid for 7 years. Right now, it was 3, now it's 7. Then one more R, if you going outside of the United States, you need a radio certificate. And you also have to be certified as a pilot to use a radio and have this certificate as well. So then always a POH. We need to have a POH and weight and balance.
Okay. Now, does every aircraft need a POH?
I believe so.
Okay, so I think if an aircraft was designed and certificated before 1976, it does not need a POH. It needs an operator's handbook if it was issued one. But if it was not issued an operator's handbook, it does not need a POH or an operator's handbook. Examples of these would be like Cubs from the 40s. There was technically I had a student with, I think, an older Mooney, or it was an older Bonanza that it came issued with an operator's handbook, which wasn't serialized. Okay. So not every aircraft needs a POH. After 76, if it came issued with an operator's handbook, it still needs that operator's handbook, but operator's handbooks do not need to be serialized for that aircraft.
Okay.
Okay.
And what about, for example, the plane that people built in their hangars? Like you build your airplane, do you need to have the POH as well?
That's going to be under experimental category, or home built experimental. It's not necessarily going to be a POH. It's still going to be an operator's handbook, but I believe it is going to be serialized for that model, because when you build your own airplane, obviously it's going to be different than the other guy that built his airplane, even if you're building the same model. Like Long Easies are a perfect example for this. I think John Denver I think he flew a Long Easy and that's how he died. Don't quote me on that. But I know there was a Long Easy out there that the fuel selector was right here, right behind their shoulder. So like, if you could see, like I can't reach a fuel selector there. Okay. I can't. I might be able to like grab it a little bit. But obviously, if the airplane was designed that way, that operator's handbook needs to have that in mind. But that is a whole nother thing. If you want to start building airplanes, I recommend getting into your local EAA chapter. I am not an aircraft builder. I've had 3 engine failures. 2 out of the 3 were in experimental airplanes. So I don't fly experimental airplanes anymore.
Right?
Okay.
You learn it the hard way, right? I got it.
Yeah, exactly. So whole nother category. If you were looking for experimental stuff on this video, I apologize. We're not going to dig too deep into it. Now you said something about ADs, right? What about airworthiness directives? Do I have to have like a copy of my airworthiness directives in the aircraft?
Well, First of all, the ADs are the directives that are provided by the FAA. Yeah, they are like recalls for a vehicle. So something needs to be fixed. And also, I know that there are types of airworthiness directives. One is that you have to perform as soon as possible. You cannot fly without performing them. One that you still have some time before doing this, and one that you have to do, like for example, in a certain period of time, like every year, check or do, like perform.
Yep. So
But they are mandatory. You must do them, so you cannot like reject if the aircraft become unairworthy.
Okay, so is there any other type of like kind of maintenance items that might be a recommendation versus a mandatory?
Yeah, there is also a recommendation. It's not mandatory, but I forgot what's the name of it.
It's called a service bulletin.
Service bulletin, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so like they are recommended by the manufacturer.
Yep. But recommended by the manufacturer. So how do you know if your aircraft gets an airworthiness directive? How are you going to be notified? Like, let's say you bought an airplane. How are you going to be notified of an airworthiness directive?
FAA website.
So the FAA actually, you remember that registration you talked about?
Yes.
You gave the FAA your address when you registered your airplane.
Oh, so you're going to receive like a mail.
Yep. They're going to send it to you in the mail. Anytime I see something in the mailbox from the FAA, I'm horribly terrified that they're sending me an airworthiness directive. I'm just like, please no. I like my airplane. Awesome. Now, are there any airworthiness directives on your aircraft?
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, so I definitely dig through the maintenance log. I don't know of any off the top of my head. I know there probably is some. I don't know of any old airplanes that don't have at least one. So knowing that is important. Being able to read through the maintenance log and kind of understanding and reading these things and knowing what it means, it's really important, especially in the event that you eventually buy an airplane. I'm assuming you'd eventually want to buy one at one point, right?
Probably.
Yeah. And learning this stuff before you buy one and you're kind of on the hook for that loan is great. I wish I would have learned this stuff before I bought one instead of learning it after I bought one and then realizing, I have expensive bills now. Awesome. So we talked about the POH. What about that weight and balance? You brought up the weight and balance. What kind of weight? What do you mean by weight and balance? Is that weight and balance that you do before every flight, or
no? This is like the empty weight of the aircraft that stays before you even fuel it.
Awesome. Now, let's say you've got to know.
And I also know that the weight and balance must be changed each time you do any changes inside of an aircraft, which are weight more than 1 pound.
Yep. Anything that'll change the weight. Yep.
They must change the weight and balance.
Yep. Now, since you brought that up, do they have to weigh the airplane? Do they have to put it on scales if they, like, let's say change your attitude indicator, right? Because you have a G5. Let's say they change their mind and now they want to put a G3X Touch in there, and the two
G weight more than 1 pound. Yeah, you must.
Okay, so they don't necessarily have to weigh it. They can estimate it by just doing the math.
Okay, just the math. Like how much weight was this thing? How much weight this thing? You just mounted it at the same place, so it means like it's not gonna like shift your CG the front or back. So in that case, you just add the number.
Yep, you can just do the math. Yep. Even if it will shift the CG slightly, for example, my airplane, the heater on my airplane can come off. I usually take it off in the summer because it impacts my cruise speed. It makes it so that like my vents don't blow as hard. The thing weighs 50 pounds and it sits fairly far forward of the CG. But when I take it off, obviously that impacts the aircraft's weight and balance. Me and my mechanic just do the math. We don't put the plane on scales.
Yes. Got it.
Now, what are you looking for in your maintenance logbook to make sure that your airplane is airworthy?
Okay, to make sure.
We already brought up one, the ADs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you also look for a minimum equipment list if you have it, but I think mine aircraft is not equipped with that. You also may have a kind of equipment list, which I think I also don't have it in my aircraft. So then we look to the ADs, and then we have the acronym Automated Flames and Flaps
Mhm.
for day VFR and night VFR flight as well.
Okay.
That's what we are looking for, all those things. And also, if we had something installed after, like you told in your videos that you like installed like a vortex
Vortex generators.
vortex generators. If you have installed them, you must have like um,
That's specific to my
a manual,
aircraft.
right?
Yeah.
Like specifically for any aircraft. If anything been installed like a G5s, you must know if those G5s are not working, if it's still airworthy or not.
Yep. So awesome. You brought up what kind of stuff we're looking through, like what documents, what regulations that we're looking at to verify that if something is broken, we can tell whether or not this airplane's airworthy. Awesome that you know that. What I was actually looking for is what maintenance items need to be accomplished to ensure that our airplane's airworthy.
Like the acronym Aviate.
Yeah, like our annuals, stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, got it. So we have an acronym Aviate for it. So A goes with the annual inspection, which are performed once in a year, every year. Then we have a 100-hour inspection. We only do it in 100 hours of tech time, but we only do this inspection when we are using the aircraft for hire with the passengers. If we taking money from the passengers, or we are teaching on the aircraft students. So that's the only two cases when we have to do the 100-hour inspection. For example, if you are towing the banners, you're don't require to do the 100-hour inspection. Then we have Aviate. So V is I was sure that I know all the acronyms. Now getting out of your head. So I also remember that we have to check the ELT, that we have to check the VR, that's the VR, and then every 30 days. And also, I think we have to check the VR only if we are flying IFR. So as long as I'm a VFR, I don't have to. And then we have that T is a transponder. We have to check the transponder, and ELT, as I said, and S is a static system.
Okay, awesome. Now, you brought up a couple of them that aren't necessarily required specifically for your aircraft for it to continue to operate in the situation that it's operating in. You even brought up like when it's actually required. Awesome. Let's talk about that annual. Let's say I do my annual on January 1st of 2024. When is my annual due next?
It says 12 calendar months, so it means like until the end of the month that it was performed previously.
Awesome.
So it's like 31st January.
Yep. So make sure if you do eventually buy an airplane, always do your annuals on the 1st. You get a whole nother 30 days. Awesome.
But you're not required to, right? So you still have time until the end of the month.
Exactly. Now you brought up that 100-hour. Okay. Let's say my airplane needs a 100-hour inspection. Okay. I'm using it either for the carriage of passengers for compensation or hire, or I'm teaching out of it and providing the aircraft and the instructor at the same time. Right. My airplane lands 3 hours away from home at 99 hours, but there's a student with it. Is that airplane stuck there?
No, you still have up to 10 hours, but you have to call FSDO for a fare permit that they will give you the allowance to get to your facility when the 100-hour inspection will be performed. But you still have up to 10 hours, but you cannot like travel back and forth. You have to go straight to the facility, like to the airport where it's going to be performed.
Exactly. Now, let's say I overfly that 10 hours. When is my next 100-hour inspection due?
It's supposed to be performed at the time that it's supposed to be performed before. It's like you had to perform the 100 inspection, let's say like $3,900. You
Mhm.
overflew it, right? Like at 4,000, you overflew it. Next one's supposed to be at 4,100. It cannot be 4,103 hours. Like it
Awesome.
must be done at the same exact time that it must be done before,
Awesome.
without counting that our overflow hours.
Yep. Without counting the overflown hours, right? The overflown hours are now tacked on to your.
On the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. Goes to the next one.
Awesome.
Next
So,
100.
does your aircraft need a landing light?
Landing light. Yeah, we need it during the nighttime.
Okay. Now, let's say you buy an airplane. Okay. Just your personal airplane. You're just out having fun. Do you need a landing light?
If you're flying VFR only day light, no.
Okay. Let's say if you're at night.
At night, yes.
So the only time you need a landing light at night is if for compensation or higher.
Okay.
Right. We don't need it for ourselves. Okay.
Okay.
I know
It's
like
part of the flaps.
it is part of flaps, right? So was it fuses or circuit breakers, landing light, if for compensation or higher.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't have a landing light for ages because it's a seaplane and it kept burning out because it would get wet. So I was just like, I'm done paying $30 for a landing light every 2 weeks. So I just didn't have one. I tried not to fly at night, but there's nothing illegal about me flying at night. Now I have a bright LED and it doesn't burn out. Awesome.
Well, actually, I can tell you by my experience when we were doing the night cross countries and night landings that are required for your PPL preparation. This landing light is mostly useless.
Yeah, the incandescent ones, the old style ones, yeah, they're garbage.
Yeah.
LED ones, they're about $200 to $400 a piece, depending on how much money you really want to spend. They are like a miniature sun packed into your wing. They will light up everything.
Yeah.
Like
Of course, it's good to have one. For
Yep.
example, if you are having like emergency landing or something, and it's going to be uncontrolled airport with the runway that are not light up, for example, and what do you have to do then? You
Exactly.
can barely see something, but you know that the runway is over here. You can see it over the moonlight, but you need more light to see it, right? So
Yep.
not to hit the ground somewhere else, and not to hit something instead of the runway. Then of course it's gonna be a huge help.
Yep. Now, let's say congratulations, you passed your private pilot certificate. What can you do now that you couldn't do before?
Okay, so I can carry passengers. I can become a salesman of aircrafts when I will have 200 hours. I can show the aircrafts as a salesman. Then I can go to the Class Bravo airport without the permission from the CFI.
Mhm.
Then what else? What else? I can split the expenses for like when we flying the aircraft with others. I forgot the word.
Pro rata share.
Pro rata share, right? Yes. So I can do the pro rata share with the passengers that I'm carrying. And what else over there? Maybe I forgot something. Probably one thing.
Actually, I feel like that's most of them. You can do things like search and rescue operations.
Oh, search and rescue operations.
Right.
Yeah, but it's like kind of tricky, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that most of the PPL holders goes with a search and rescue. But yeah, you can still go with the search and rescue, and you can also work for charity events.
Yep. Awesome. Now I am trying to get your navlog up on my iPad. I'll figure it out. But perfect. Now let's get into. Let's say you've got a buddy, right? He's got some. I don't know. You like football, soccer,
Soccer, right?
soccer,
No, but
right?
it's football.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, it's
Football,
football.
football,
Yeah,
baseball, right? So let's say you got a buddy who's got football tickets, and
yeah.
they're in like Texas, right? The game's in like Texas,
Okay.
and he says, "Hey, if you fly me to this football game, I got some tickets for you. Can you do this?"
No,
No, why not?
because like we can do this in case it's not like written somewhere, so nobody knows that I received tickets because bringing him there. In that case, probably yes. But if like we have like a text messages when he says like, "Oh, you bring me there, you have a ticket," like you receive the money
Yep.
for that. Like in that case, it's kind of, yeah, you can lose the license.
Well, and exactly. Even if we're not like writing it down, of course, we always want to operate. You know, honestly, we want to make sure we're doing everything appropriately. Um, Once we start doing things outside of the regulations, outside of what's approved, we start accepting further and further deviancies
Yeah,
from what's appropriate, whether we're writing it down or not. But if he says, "Hey, I'll sell you these tickets for $50, and then we can fly there," that's fair game. It doesn't matter what the tickets cost beforehand, but if he sells you the tickets for $50,
yeah,
fair game, right? Because you bought the tickets. Now you both have a reason to go there.
yeah.
Let's say this same buddy was like, "Hey, man, me and my date, we got these games we got these tickets in Texas. We really want to get to this game. We don't really feel like paying for like a Spirit or a Frontier ticket. You're going there anyway. You mind if we tag along? Is that okay?"
Going to that game and then what?
So they're going to the game. You're flying to Texas anyway for a completely separate reason, and they want to
So
tag.
I bring them there and then come back
No, no,
like alone, or just leave
no.
them
So
there?
like, let's say you are flying to Texas anyway.
Right.
You're going to go there whether they come with or not,
All right.
but you're going for an entirely separate reason. And they say, "Hey, you mind if we tag along?" Is that okay?
I think that there is a regulation that if you have the passengers from one airport, you have to bring them back to the same one. In the other case, it will be like you brought them there, so you kind of not allowed to do like it's like a transportation thing.
Yeah,
So you just transported people to other place without bringing them back.
Yeah, so I mean, you
So
dropped
you're
them
not allowed
off.
to
You
do that.
provided them transportation from point A to
Transportation.
point B. Um, it's less about dropping them off. It's more about common purpose. So, like, let's say you and that same buddy, wanted to go to a football game, and he was going to catch a separate flight out. Nothing illegal about that. If you and him were both going to that airport for the purpose of the football game, the
Okay.
fact that he didn't get back in your airplane doesn't make it illegal.
Of course. No,
Okay.
you have to go back somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, "Well, no, man, you got to get back in." Like like
But
I'm
I can't
I'm
fly back home.
I was like, "I'm a hog tie you and throw you in the cargo if you don't get back in." No, that's not the case. But awesome, right? So we understand we need a common purpose. We can't receive any kind of compensation. Remember, the FAA views flight time as compensation. Okay, and that's kind of the big point of like why we can't take somebody somewhere, because the FAA views us receiving the flight time as compensation. All right. Even if we split the cost, right, we still need to ensure that we have a common purpose.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get into some airspace. You're going into a class. Seems like on your flight plan, you might be navigating around a Class Bravo airspace.
Yes. I will not be entering it though, because most period of time they don't even allow.
Mm-hmm.
When we were doing our cross country, we were flying close to Class Bravo, and the first thing they said like, "Stay out of Bravo."
Yep. That is a lot of the things that they'll tell you to pound sand and stay out of the Bravo, because there is no Bravo transitions for that airport. Have you ever heard of a Bravo transition?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
the arrows that you have right close to the airport or right over the airport, that you have the transition right. You can go like through it.
Exactly.
But I believe Miami International is like a heavy traffic over there, back and forth, and they just don't allow it.
No, no, they do not allow it. Um, awesome. But let's just say for some reason they did clear you through the Bravo. What kind of equipment would you need to ensure that you are legal to operate inside that Bravo?
Okay, I need to have a Mode C transponder. I need to have a ADSB out transponder. I need to have a radio, so I will be able to communicate with ADC and receive a clearance with my tail number to enter the airspace.
Awesome, awesome. Um, that's all correct. Now, what kind of weather are you looking for at this route or at this airport to
Minimum
ensure?
minimum visibility is 3 statute miles and stay clear of floods.
Awesome, awesome. Now let's do that same thing, but for Charlie. What do you need, or correction, Delta? What do you need to go to Delta?
Um, Two-way radio, just establish the communication with them. Two-way communication with your tail number. Just if they will tell you, like, no, for example, my aircraft is November 3055 Bravo. Roger. It will be more than enough to enter the airspace.
Um, now, are you
If
saying
they will not tell me stay out of Delta, then means that I am still allowed to go inside. I just have to wait for the further instructions.
okay? Now, let's say that they say last calling aircraft, stand by. Are you cleared to enter that airspace?
No,
No. So
no tail number.
exactly, you need to hear that tail number. Perfect. I love it. Um, so far doing pretty good. There was just a few things that it was really in the emergencies that I had a little bit of concerns. We were talking about spins. We were talking about response to an engine fire and start. But so far, not doing half bad. Let's say we go into that Charlie airspace. We land. We go and get lunch or what have you. We come back. It's now 2,000-foot ceilings with 2-mile visibility at this Charlie airport. But we look at the TAF and the METARs for the airports nearby. And it looks like it's pretty clear around the airport. It just looks like it's or it just looks like it's crap here at this airport. Is there any way that we could leave this airport, or are we stuck here?
Of course.
Okay, how could we leave? What are we going to ask?
Special VFR.
We could ask for a special VFR. What does special VFR allow?
So it allows us to have lower visibility and lower cloud clearance. So the ceiling, I think, is going to be up to 1,000 feet from the ground and 1 mile visibility. In that case, we just can ask for a special VFR that we are going, for example, to the direction where the VFR condition exists, and it's not far away. So if they will allow us to do the special VFR, we can definitely go.
Awesome. That's exactly what we're looking for. So let's get into some aerodynamics. I know we've briefly touched on it a little bit. But what are flaps good for? Like, why are we using flaps?
So flaps allow us to have more drag and allow us to descend on the lower speed because of this drag created. Descend on the lower speed with a higher angle.
Yep, a higher angle of descent, lower speeds. Perfect, perfect. How are flaps giving us more drag?
Because it makes our wing bigger first and more drag, because I know you also explained in one of the videos, because it changes the wing, the center line of the wing. I forgot the word. How
Cord line.
Yeah, the cord line. It changes the cord line, because cord line is it goes from the beginning of the wing until the end, and as we extend the end, it just changes. The angle also changes.
Yep. So as we go from the leading edge of the wing to the trailing edge of the wing, perfect. What other angle am I using to?
Angle of attack.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. What is angle of attack?
So angle of attack is the angle between relative wind and the cord line of the wings.
Okay, so what is angle of attack telling me? Like, what am I? Why do I care what angle of attack is?
Uh, like the higher angle of attack, the more drag you create, and also the more lift you create.
Okay, so what happens? Let's say I crank my angle of attack up way, 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 way too high. What's going to happen?
Oh,
Yep, I'm going to stall. When do I stall?
depending on the aircraft.
Okay, so
When it's not enough lift to bring your aircraft higher.
yep,
So when you turn the wings, um, uh, how it works, right? So we have a high pressure that's created underneath the wing, and we have a low pressure, and high pressure is trying to get on top. That's how the lift works. So when we have a higher angle of attack, that we create a turbulence on top of the wing, and we don't have no more like high pressure that goes on the top of the wing, and that's kind of
okay.
create a stall.
So it's less about let's open up my I'm gonna open up Microsoft Paint again and we'll kind of go over that because it's
Okay.
um
So I kind of understand what's going on, but I kind of hard for me to explain.
so it's it's not about the high pressure trying to bleed over onto the top. That's actually where most of your drag comes from. So what I'm going to do is I'm again going to draw a wing real quick. This one's a little bit better. We've obviously got a pretty high angle of attack right here because angle of
Right.
attack is chord line versus relative wind. So here's our AOA.
Yes.
All right, that's our angle of attack.
Yes.
Why do we end up with turbulence at the leading or at the trailing edge? You're right. It is about the fact that the high pressure air down here is trying to bleed over onto the low pressure air. That's why we get wingtip vortices. That is not why we generate lift.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're generating lift because you remember Bernoulli's principle, right?
Yes.
So when fluid, and let's keep this in mind that air is a fluid. When fluid meets a restriction, the wing is our restriction. The internal pressure has to drop. Okay. We end up with a lower pressure on top of the wing because it's meeting this restriction. All right. Now we have a relatively high pressure underneath the wing. That is the whole reason why we generate lift. It is got nothing to do with the fact that the high pressure is trying to bleed onto the top of the low pressure or on top of the wing. It's got everything to do with the fact that when our fluid meets a restriction, the fluid's speed needs to increase while its internal pressure decreases, causing a relatively low pressure on top of the wing. We also have like Newton's third law is another principle of lift. Newton's third law really just says for every action, there's an equal yet opposite reaction. So we have the air hit the wing push the air down. So since the wing pushed the air down, the air pushes the wing up. Okay. Now we're going to look at the wing kind of from the top or kind of from the back. Okay. We're going to look at kind of from the back of the airplane. What you were talking about was induced drag. Okay. That's really what you were talking about when you were bringing up the fact that it spills over onto the top. So here's kind of a cross section of, oh, that's bad. Here's kind of a cross section of an airplane, right? We're looking
Okay.
at it from the back. Here's our rudder. Here's
All
our
right.
horizontal stabilizer. So when we
Okay.
generate lift, as we said, we have that high pressure underneath
Yep.
and low pressure on top. Okay. When this high pressure gets to the tips, it wants to spill over and it actually contacts the top of the wing. And that's where a lot of our drag comes from.
Yes.
Okay. This action is not what's producing lift.
This producing drag.
This is just producing drag. Let's say this airplane is close to the ground.
We're gonna have a ground effect. So
How close to the ground do I need to be to have ground effect?
in length of the one wingspan.
Yep, within
Wingspan.
one wingspan of the wing. What are the benefits of being in ground effect?
So these vortices is not generated like this. So they go underneath.
Yep.
Oh no. They pushed away from the wings.
Yep. They really just get kind of pushed away. So
So
you
we
end
don't
up with
have this drag.
Yep. So we end up generating the same amount of lift with less drag to fight against. We end up generating the same amount of thrust with less drag to fight against. Awesome. So it's just, it might have been a maybe a translation concern with this one, but that's really the big takeaways. Okay. Awesome. We talked about what happens in a stall, or at least you brought it up. Awesome that we're able to. It's fine to keep talking as long as you've got the correct answers, and so far you've been doing pretty good with that. Now, if we're trying to get into just a little bit more complicated, all right, because that's what you asked for. You wanted real complicated. Now, why is our wing twisted from root to tip? So what I mean by twisted from root to tip, here at the root, yeah, they're not like this, right? That, what is this called?
V.
Dihedral.
Like detail?
So when our wings are tilted up like this, all right, that's called dihedral. Why do we have dihedral in our airplane?
You also explained in one of the videos, actually, but I just don't remember, like, for sure how to explain it.
Okay, so we have dihedral in our airplane because it's a stabilizing angle, right? It helps the aircraft stabilizing. How is it doing this? Why is it doing this? If our aircraft gets disturbed slightly off, right? When we do this, you can see that the wing ends up kind of flatter with the relative wind. So when that wing ends up flatter with the relative wind, it generates more lift, right? So if this wing ends up flatter with the wind, it generates more lift, pushing it back to wings level. That's why we have dihedral. Okay. Now, think about this if I had anhedral, which is where the wings tilt down. All right, let's just turn it upside down. If the airplane ends up getting disturbed, now this wing it's going to keep wanting to go, right? It's a destabilizing angle. You're thinking of like the Antonov, the F-16, the F-18.
Oh yeah. Antonov has those kind of wings, right?
Yep. That's why it's such a great cargo plane, and it's used in the places that it was used, because it was an agile cargo plane. Awesome. Now, what I was asking originally, though, is our wings from the side, why are they twisted like this? Right?
Like a winglets. How do you call those? Right?
No,
winglets.
Oh no. What I'm more getting at is at the wing root, right? It's higher than the wing tip on the leading edge.
It's like because of how the wing how the wind goes on top of it, right? And just slides over the wing from here all the way back. Okay. Something like this.
So it's where the stall is going to propagate from.
Okay.
You understand what I mean by that?
No.
Okay. Back to Microsoft Paint.
All right.
Microsoft Paint.
Okay.
Let's go with a new one. Don't save. So we're looking top down on the wing right now. Okay.
All right.
So here's our wing. Okay. Your wing's kind of shaped like a Hershey bar, right? Here's the rest of the airplane. We'll forget about the tail that's down there. The tail doesn't matter right now. So I have a higher angle relative to the ground here than I do here.
All right.
Okay. So this matters because remember, we're going to cut our airplane into slices right now, or we're going to cut our wing into slices right now. So here's our wing root. It's kind of a steep angle, right? Kind of a steep angle to the ground. Here's our wing tip. You see how it's not as steep in relative to the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You see how it's not as steep as maybe relative to the wind as well? So if we were to compare angle of attack of these two sections, this one has a higher angle of attack, doesn't it?
Yes.
And this is our wing root. And this is our wing tip. So if we have a higher angle of attack at our wing root, where is it going to stall first? Is it going to stall here or here?
Where is it higher?
Exactly. So where are my ailerons on this wing?
Yeah, over here
Yep,
on the
they're
back.
on the tips, right?
Tip.
So this is why our wing is twisted. This angle is actually called washout. All right. It's because I want my wing, when it does stall, I want it to stall from the inside to the outside so that I can have aileron control even in a stall.
Okay.
Right.
Now I got it.
I want my stall to propagate outward from the wing root. If it stalled the other way, as soon as I go to stall, I have no control of my ailerons.
Yeah, ailerons useless.
Exactly. You start getting into jets, that's how jets stall. They stall from the tip inward. But on your, trainer aircraft, you're really safe aircraft. They stall from the root out. And one of the big factors that cause that stalling is that washout angle. Okay. The Icon A5, that seaplane, has a really big washout angle, which is why the airplane stalls so flat. The airplane, when it does stall, when that Icon does stall, it stalls flat. It does not tip or dip at all. It goes eat and comes straight back down because the root stalls so quickly and so much, the airplane cannot generate enough lift to push it deeper into the stall to lose aileron control, which makes it really safe, but it also makes it slow. It makes it a $500,000 jet ski with wings. Now,
compared to Icon, what you can tell about yours?
I have really good useful load. My range is, I forget the range on an Icon, but I know it's not great. My useful load is almost 1,200 pounds on my airplane. The Icon's useful load, it's pretty much full tanks, you, and a tackle box. With a cruise speed of 85.
So the good thing about Icon only is that you can take your wings and just make it like this, right?
Yep.
And just travel with anywhere, just with your car.
Exactly. If I remember correctly, it fits on a jet ski trailer.
You can. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, don't get me wrong. If all you want is a fun seaplane to have fun in, sure, go get yourself an Icon.
Very expensive one.
If you want an airplane that has useful load that you can use for camping, because that's what me and my wife do with the airplane. We fly to beaches and we go camping in it. That's not an option in an Icon.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The Icon burns a lot less gas than we do. I think in cruise, we normally cruise around 9 to 10 gallons an hour. The Icon cruises around 4 or 5. So problem is the Icon carries 15. So, yeah. All right. So, when you're taking off or when you're climbing out, you need to add a lot of right rudder. Your instructor's always yelling at you, more right rudder, more right rudder.
Yeah.
Why?
Actually, yes.
Why do you need so much right rudder?
Because we have a left turning tendency.
Okay. So, what are those left turning tendencies?
We have 4 of them. First is a P factor, that the prop that goes this direction, it causes more left on the right side than on the left side, and it causes our returning to the left always. That's why we have to use the rudder. Second one is how the air spins after the prop. I just forgot the names, but I can try to explain.
Mm-hmm.
So how the air spins after the prop, and it just spins and it hits our left side of the tail. So it also turns us to the left. Then we have a gyroscopic precession that goes to the right and 90 degrees when you apply force on the prop, and especially on I think when you apply it on a descent, when you apply the force going down. So you apply the force on the prop, which is like a perfect gyro. So you apply force, it goes right in 90 degrees and it turns you left as well. And what else? What's the fourth one? This one. What's the fourth one?
Torque.
The torque.
Torque.
Yeah.
Yep.
The torque. Right. So it's like a counteraction, right?
Yep.
It turns right. So your plane mentioned the torque, like it turns left. Right?
Yep. The one that you couldn't think of the name of spiraling slipstream.
Yeah.
Spiraling slipstream. So what I want to do is I want to bring up kind of what I'm noticing at this point. So we've been at this for about 2 hours. And what I'm noticing, the farther we get into this, the more words you're struggling to kind of remember. Recognize that on your check ride. You're starting to get a little tired. You need a little bit of water, maybe a cookie, get your blood sugar back up. Recognize that on your check ride. Say so. Ask to take a break. It's your check ride. You set the pace.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, actually, it's not only about that, but I just really don't remember all of those kind of words that are new for me. And you don't have that much time. I remember more and more from time to time when I'm flying, when I'm learning, but not everything at once. It's easier to, I think, to pass the exam when you have like 100 hours already of like flying, for example, right? The people that are learning for like years and years. Then you have like more chances to memorize everything. So I'm trying to, but as I said, like my primary language is not English, and it's even harder for me. I was struggling with the ADC for like, I believe, 6 or 7 flights.
Yeah.
Without understanding a word over there, anything. Yeah, so it was like, what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah. What do you say?
How can you understand this?
I definitely know. I definitely understand that. A lot of my students, they came from Air China. So English was not their first language. And there was definitely some struggles here and there. I made sure to like have my phone like Bluetoothed to the Garmin products inside the airplane, so that if there was like a translation error that like we just weren't understanding what we were saying, I could easily like Bluetooth like a Google Translate to them, be like, hey, I'm trying to say this. And they're like, oh, okay. And then we'd kind of continue on with the lesson. I did a couple times have to stop a lesson because there was just some translation errors going on, and it just broke down. We couldn't talk.
It's not that hard for me. I still kind of speak English pretty fluent. So for me, it's kind of hard to learn new words or new acronyms or new things, but I understand how it works. This is the main thing. And I can explain. For example, I was the same thing. I was struggling with type of icing, right? So what type of icing? And I couldn't remember the word rime ice, but I can understand what is it, how it builds, how it affects the wing and stuff like that. So as long as I understand and I can explain it, I don't think I have to memorize like the exact word or like exact acronym.
Exactly. Now, since you brought up icing, let's talk about it. What are the different kinds of icing?
I knew that. Yeah, that's why you have to shut up on your exam. Do not talk much and do not explain a lot of things outside of the question being asked.
Yep. Answer the question that has been asked, and that's it.
Right.
But again,
because then,
so tell me about the different kinds of icing.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 3 types of icing actually. Instrumental icing. This is like our pilot heat mounted for. Like we have the pilot icing, right? And for example, in my aircraft, I just have a pilot heat. This is how I get off this type of icing. The second thing, we have a carburetor icing. We have a carb heat for that. And we have structural icing. This is what I was talking to. Like we have 3 things of structural icing. Rime ice that might built on the aircraft. We have clear ice, which is the most dangerous because you can barely see it. And the third thing is a mixed one. We have both rime and clear ice.
Okay, so when is rime ice most likely going to occur?
The rime ice mostly will be occurring when you are in a very dangerous condition called the rain, like the icing rain, when it's like close to the 0 degrees Celsius temperature and it rains, and when the drops hit any surface, it freezes right away.
Okay, so that's going to be more of clear icing. So clear icing develops when supercooled large water droplets hit the aircraft and spread out before freezing. Typically, cumuliform clouds, freezing rain, stuff like that. Rime ice is going to occur again, super cooled liquid water droplets, but it's going to be more of like a mist of super cooled liquid water droplets or small. These normally occur from like stratiform clouds, freezing fog, light drizzle. That's going to be rime. You brought up clear. You said it's clear. It's hard to see. What does rime ice look like?
Uh, the rime ice, you can see it. Usually, it builds on like the leading edge of the wings, and you can see it because it looks like a small dots over there. A lot of small dots that builds and builds more and more and more. So you can see it.
Yep. Now, let's say you walk out to your airplane and there's a little bit of frost on the wing. Can we just take off?
No.
No, no. Yep.
No.
We need a clean wing. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Of course. Clean surface.
Yep. Well, a lot of places it's a clean aircraft, not just the wings. Like the airplane needs to be free of any kind of ice or frost. Perfect. Now, what I've noticed from a lot of these mock check rides and talking to students that go and take their check ride is a lot of DPEs are starting to dig into basic med. So who is eligible to fly under basic med?
Okay, any person eligible to fly under the basic med, as long as you already had the medical certificate once in a lifetime before, but you are not like you don't met the conditions anymore with a regular medical certificate. You can go fly with a basic med, and actually the basic med, you can just go to any like a state physician, a licensed state physician, and just do the basic med exam over there. Just done the exam and receive the basic med. Yeah, you will have certain limitations because of that, but you can still do it.
Okay, so big takeaway, the FAA never says anything about basic med being for those who cannot hold a medical. They've never said anything about that.
Okay.
All right. I know
All
that's
right. So you can probably just want to go with the basic med because it's easier to receive, and
that's the big thing that the FAA talks about. If you've ever lost your medical, like if your medical has either been denied, revoked, suspended, or withdrawn, you are not eligible for basic med. Okay. So that's, I know I used to think it was like, oh, basic med is for people who can't hold medicals. That's the whole point of it, right? No.
yeah,
Basic
probably,
med,
I think the same.
basic med is for people who just don't want to go to an AME.
Okay.
Right? They want to leave it up to their treating physician on whether or not they're fit to fly, or their primary care physician, or just a random physician, to be honest. Now, another little takeaway, it's got to be past 2006. Their medical that they have had must have been post 2006. Okay. The date is actually July 14th, 2006. So let's say you got a buddy that's, 60, 70 years old, and they want to go back to flying because they got their private pilot's license when they were like 20. All right. Obviously,
it's not going to count.
It's not going to count, right? They're going to have to go get another medical before they can fall under basic med.
Okay.
Okay, there are some limitations. Things like less than 250 knots, you can't fly for higher.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. Awesome.
Not more than 6 passengers, like 5 passengers, including you, like not more than 6%, not more than how much is over there?
It's 6,000 or
6,000
8,000 pounds.
Yep. Aircraft, right? Then 250 knots. You can still fly IFR. You cannot go over 18,000 MSL, and you cannot go outside of the United States.
Awesome.
Borders.
Now, let's get into your flight plan.
Okay.
All right. I'm trying to pull up my iPad so that we can kind of follow along together. Oh, my iPad is... Oh, whatever. I'll just do this then. Awesome. So we can see this. We can see your route right up here at the top. All right. So talk to me about this route. I think you said you planned for 2,500. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So talk to me about your
Because
plan.
of the class Bravo mostly, and like we have a lot of limitations over here. 2,500. It's a good altitude. Of course, when you plan cross country, 2,500 is not a nice altitude to have. Because the higher you fly, the more time you have during any kind of emergency.
Yep. That's and I love what you're doing down here. Now, why am I following along this as opposed to just cutting across? Why don't I
Let
just cut
me
across?
full screen over here so I can see what's going on over here on your screen. Exit full screen. How can I? Okay. So, what's the question?
So I see how you kind of came down here to the tip, and now
Uh-huh.
you're following along all this land.
Yes.
Right? Why don't I just cut straight across?
Because first of all, we have to think about we are flying VFR. We have need to the visual ground reference, which like we have to stay closer to the ground, not to the water. Because just in case of emergency, of course, we can try and land in the water, which is not that safe as to land somewhere in the land side. But still, yeah, I think we're supposed to stay not far than 500 feet away from the shoreline.
Okay, so it's not necessarily 500 feet. You got to always be within glide distance of a
Yeah,
place for
glide
land.
distance. Yeah, of the shore, right? Glide distance of the shore.
Yeah. Can you glide across this? Like how wide? How far is it? What does
It's
that
pretty
look
far.
like? 27 nautical miles.
27 nautical miles for sure now.
Yeah. Well, how do you know that?
We have the gliding speed and we also have the glide rate. Glide rate on my aircraft is 9.5, but let's say 9.5 is like it's a ideal conditions. So let's say it's like less. Let's say it's like 8. So it means like in every 1,000 that we descend on our gliding speed, which is 76 knots, we have like 8,000 feet of the land distance, right? So 8,000 feet. So let's say we are flying at 2,500. So it's like, how much is it? 20,000 feet? 20,000 feet, I think, is like a couple miles.
Okay, so let's go back to your POH and let's actually just look at the chart.
Yep.
That would really be the best case scenario is to just look at the chart and make that decision from there. What section of the POH should I go to?
It's a good question. I'm not familiar with the sections, but I know that we have to go to the performance.
Okay, so the performance section.
Yeah, performance section.
Awesome. That's stall speed.
I thought you were like asking what kind of like a page or paragraph.
No, just what
Performance
section are we going to start in? We're going to start in the performance section. All right. That's our climb performance. That's our time, fuel, and distance. Speed, power, speed versus power, speed, power at economy cruise, best range. Oh, come on. Where is your glide chart? There we go. Here's glide range.
All right.
So have you ever used this chart before?
Yeah, actually yesterday.
Okay. So the way I use it is I think of like worst case scenario, engine fails at the middle point. So the middle point of 27 miles is about 14 miles.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to grab, and I'll round up, make it even safer. We'll grab the 15-mile line and we'll track it up to here, which means we would have to climb up to 9,000 feet to be able to glide at our middle point.
Right.
Could we do that?
No, of course.
We can't climb up to 9,000 feet?
Well, we can.
Okay. I was just saying, like, that's, I'm not saying what you're doing here is wrong. This actually looks like a lot safer than my plan. I just know if I was if I was doing this check ride, that would be one of the first questions I asked. Is like, why are we doing this weird roundabout thing where it's going to take us so much longer? I want to just get there. Right.
It's safer.
And you could just straight up say,
especially
it's like, well,
I'd selected the 2,500. We have to stay as close to the ground reference as possible.
Yep, we have to pretty much stay. I mean, because if we go back to your glide chart, right?
I
Glide
don't have
chart
much gliding distance.
2,500. We're gonna glide 4 miles.
Yeah,
So
not much.
no, not much. How do you put this information into your ForeFlight? ForeFlight has a glide ring, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, how do I do that? Talk me through it.
When you go to the aircraft and you just yeah,
Okay, so
over
I go
here,
to
go to the
aircraft.
aircraft. Yes.
Okay.
And over here they have, you see, glide performance.
Oh, okay. So I got best glide,
Best glide ratio
glide
5,
ratio.
and we have glide speed 70.
Okay, well, 5 is that's my airplane. Yeah, my
Yes.
my airplane's glide ratio sucks. Awesome. So we know how to install. We know how to do that.
Yes.
Now, let's say that I wanted to do my weight and balance from my iPad, from my ForeFlight, for this route. How would I do that?
You will also have a weight and balance over there in the menu.
Okay, so I could come over back to aircraft. What do I do?
No, not the aircraft. You go to the menu.
Oh, menu?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
look,
you
weight
have
and
weight and
balance. Oh, look, my
Over
CG
here.
is too far forward on this airplane.
Oh my God, how are you flying?
I'm not. This is me trying to plan to bring my entire family in the airplane, and it's not going to
Okay.
work. It's not going to work.
I would have to stay home.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to stay home, or somebody's going to have to go on a diet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could come over here, right? But how do I put this into the iPad? So, like, this is a profile that I already built, right?
Yeah. So we just go to the profile of the airplane and we just add those numbers. You see the like the weights over here? You see the
Okay.
weights. Basic empty weight, zero fuel weight. You just go grab your weight and balance from the airplane and just put those numbers over here, and it creates the envelope.
Okay, so this is my basic empty weight, my max zero weight, my max ramp weight, my max takeoff weight, and my max landing weight, right? So
And I have the same.
that doesn't tell me how like my CG range, does it? Where do I do that? How do I put in things like my CG limit, my weight limit? Have you ever done this?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, I also have to fill all those kind of information over there.
Yep. So all I was really looking for is you to say add weight and balance profile.
Yes, weight and balance.
Yep.
So this is what I have over here.
Okay. Which is great.
It's the same.
Mm-hmm. The only reason I'm asking
over here.
The only reason I'm asking is ForeFlight. If I put, let's say I put in your tail number, right? So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to, that's not what I wanted to do. So I am going to come down here. I'm going to go to aircraft. I am going to just add an aircraft tail number. What's your aircraft's tail number?
November 3055 Bravo.
3055 Bravo.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, ForeFlight doesn't do that anymore? Oh, come on.
I can send it over to you, I believe.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I can send it. I can send it over the email.
No, what I was asking, ForeFlight used to let you just put the tail number in and it would grab a profile. That's what it used to do. That's why I was asking these questions, because ForeFlight used to just say screw it, and you could put in a tail number and it would go, oh, you mean this airplane? And then you could go, yeah, I mean that airplane.
Okay.
All right.
I know. I
it seems
the
like
same problem over here.
Yeah.
I have to do everything manually.
Okay. That's a change to ForeFlight, because when I was using ForeFlight years ago, because I'm not gonna lie, I just downloaded ForeFlight again yesterday. I've been using Garmin Pilot for like the better part of the last 5 years. But it does seem like there's been some changes to ForeFlight. Okay. So we talked about why you chose your altitude, 2,500. It's because you're trying to avoid the Bravo airspace. We talked about why you chose this kind of weird route. It's not a weird route. It's a safe route. Okay. So don't bully him about his route. What does this mean? All these little blue marks.
It's like a water, or like the surface that can be flooded.
Yep. So it's a swamp.
Mm-hmm.
It's wetlands. All right.
Yeah.
Is this safe for me to land in if I had an engine failure?
No,
it's definitely not. Now, what is this What is this big dotted line that's kind of surrounding this bottom half of Florida? This one right
This
here.
is like uh, the area of like wildlife.
So a wildlife refuge or wilderness area,
Yeah,
right? Oh,
yeah.
is there any regulations associated with that? Is there any like you need to do this?
Well, 2,000 feet regulation. You have to fly above 2,000 feet.
Is that specific to this one? Because it's not necessarily a regulation for most of these. It's a request.
Requirements.
No,
Like request, right?
yeah,
Like you better to, right?
yeah. It'd be like, hey, please,
Yeah,
please versus you will,
yeah.
right? Um, now what is this purple area right here? What is this purple with the
Border
dots?
of the United States border.
Okay, so what is it called though? Like, because the border, um, it is yes the border, but what is it in aviation terms?
This US 80s
Yep. So it's the ADIS, right? What is ADIS?
air defense zone, international zone,
Air Defense Interdiction Zone.
interdiction zone.
Yep. So you already know what an interdiction looks like because you had a buddy that got interdicted,
Yeah.
right? So what does it look like?
So they just gonna chase you on a. It's not my body. It's a story actually
Oh, it's a story.
from a different school, right? Yes, they were interdicted with 15s, I believe. And they request him to land as soon as possible, or the like if like this is the first case scenario. Second case scenario, they just gonna fire at you, but not at you, like close nearby, like a preventive fire. And the third thing, you're just gonna be shut down.
Okay. So I believe what they're supposed to, right? They're going to pull up on the side of you in which they want you to go. Okay.
Yes.
They're going to try to get a hold of you on 121.5. If they can't get a hold of you, they're going to rock their wings and they're going to fly in the direction they want you to go. If you don't do it again, they might send, what's the word? Tracer rounds. Tracer rounds is an option. I don't think they're going to use tracer rounds because the risk of like hitting you or somebody else. What they're most likely going to do is flares. Okay, they're going to drop flares again in the direction they want you to go. There is no third try,
Yes.
right? So just keep that in mind. Okay. So we talked about Bravo. We know what Bravo airspace looks like. We're pretty comfortable with it. What airspace is on the ground here?
It's an echo.
Echo to the ground, right?
To the ground, right?
What about right outside this little dotted area? So right there, what airspace is on the ground here?
It's Gulf airspace.
Okay, up to what altitude?
It's Gulf up to one. It's Gulf up to 700.
Up to 700. What about outside this shaded purple?
Up to 1,200.
Awesome. What is this purple line, this purple dashed line that I'm following?
This is a compass deviation.
Right, it's called an isogonic line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now we've got your flight plan up here.
Mm-hmm.
How do I file this?
Okay. Then you have to first of all you have to you see this thing close to edit that with the small arrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. You just go send it to let me go and check on mine first. Navlog. No. So we just go here and it goes straight to our flights. We have it on flights. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So send it to flights.
And then you see proceed to file.
Awesome. All right. So I'm not going to do that, obviously, because I don't plan on actually doing this flight.
Yeah.
How do I get a weather briefing for this?
That you have the briefing on top of it.
Awesome. So let's look at it. Let's go over this weather. Say that we're going to do it.
Let me do the same over here because it will be easier for me to just see. We're going to have the same.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is perfect. So let's look at our TAF. Is there any weather on this TAF that I might be concerned about?
Okay, so where are we at? TAFs.
Yep. So I'm looking at the OPF TAF, because that's the
Mhm.
closest one.
Okay, OPF tab. Okay, so what we have over here? Boom, boom, boom. Scattered, broken. From 1400, we have showers at the vicinity.
Yep. So that's something to be at least a little concerned about, right? Showers in the vicinity
Yes.
usually indicate some kind of
But
turbulence,
it's
right?
still VFR. We hit some rain showers during our landing. It's not harmful as long as it's not a thunderstorm. Rain shower is not a bad thing to have during your VFR flight.
Exactly. The airplane isn't made of sugar. It's not going to melt.
Right.
I've made that joke a couple different times. Now, what does this money sign mean? What does this little dollar
I mean,
sign
that
mean?
need to be fixed.
Yep.
Need
Something on this device needs to be
yeah.
fixed,
They
right?
need to do something with the transponder, or how do you call this?
There's just something wrong with the machine.
Yeah.
So like really it's really just saying like, hey, something's broken with this machine, so something on this might be wrong, right?
Yeah. They
Um
requested the maintenance.
Yep. So we're seeing no NOTAMs that have recently been filed. All right, we do see looks like maybe some runway or there's some closures on some of these runways, a couple obstructions. Looks like flow control. Okay, we're not really worried about flow control, right? Because we're not filing into it. Do you know what flow control is?
No.
No, flow control really just says like, hey, we're slowing airplanes down. We're slowing down departures because we're busy at this airport. We can't accept more departures. It's IFR, but that would count as a delay, right? You can see single engine aircraft operating under Part 135 filing into the FLL area via Decal intersection should expect to cross Decal at 11,000 when carrying passengers 135, 183. When Part 135, 183 rules apply, pilots should include the following note in the remarks section of their flight plan. I require 11,000 at Decal for all 135 operators. All other non-turbojet aircraft, single-engine Part 135 aircraft not carrying passengers should expect to cross Decal at 4,000. That would be you. Or, well, no, you're not Part 135. So it doesn't really apply to you because you're not Part 135, right?
Okay.
But reading through flow controls can still apply for VFR pilots because if you tried to go there and they were slowing down arrivals, you might end up catching a delay that you didn't fuel plan for, right?
Yes.
Not seeing any NOTAMs that are really applying to us. Seeing fairly strong west wind. Would you agree?
10 knots.
I'm seeing plus 22. Oh, I
Plus 22 is
I
a
might have
degrees.
picked a different altitude. Yeah.
That's temperature.
Oh, that's temperature. You're right. I'm sorry. 10
That's
knots for the
temperature.
flag. Yep.
The knots,
Yeah,
we
you're right.
can see the knots with this thing.
Yep.
That shows us the wing,
Yep.
the direction, and then the wind speed.
Sorry, I read them wrong. Again, downloaded ForeFlight again yesterday. This
It's an
actually
excuse.
is awesome. I'm going to be using this more often for my flights because this is a much more condensed briefing. I love it. So you were able to file a briefing. You're able to do weight and balance. Anything else I want to talk about? So based on this flight plan, how much fuel do you need?
Well, actually, we can go back to maps,
Okay.
and you can see that you will have the total distance,
Mhm.
that's an EDA, and the fuel.
Awesome. So I'm showing 13.4, but that's because I have my airplane in here. How much gas do you need?
Over here shows 11.6.
Okay, 11.6. Oh, does that provide you any kind of protection, or is that exactly how much gas you're going to burn? better way to
No, of
put this
course.
question
It's like
is
it's an approximate, right? It depends on actually this calculation based on a condition that the flight knows.
mm,
Depends on like a selected altitude of the winds aloft and the temperature over there. It calculates it. This is why this thing is great, and you
mhm.
don't have to go with all these plotters and stuff and E6B calculator and just do all these things with the wind and stuff. This is why it's really great. But still, like I would not fully agree with these numbers. I would just add some numbers on top of it. Let's say it's not going to be 11.6. Let's say it's going to be 15 gallons.
Okay.
Because of like it also actually include a taxi. Because when you do the calculations over here, you just add all those numbers.
Yep. So you
Including the
can
taxi.
put that taxi fuel in the performance numbers of the iPad, right?
Yes.
Um, so let's look at mine, for example, right? Mine says I need 13.3 gallons.
Okay.
Is it legal for me to just go put 13.3 gallons in this airplane and go?
Of course not. No.
Okay. So how much more do I need?
You need at least for 30 minutes more flying during the day and 45 more minutes flying during the night. But that's like a limit. I would never go with only 30 minutes more additional fuel.
Yeah, of course. You definitely want to bring more. I think the
Like
least
at least an hour.
I think the least I've ever done ever is 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm really happy with your EFB usage. I don't think there's any. How do I see TFRs on this?
TFRs, you have the option. You could just go over here when you are looking at the map. You have an arrow and VFR over there, and you have just press TFRs.
Oh, look, it's right there. I already have it selected. Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
And we actually have the TFR close to Miami. There is one TFR over the stadium, like the football game over there, and we also have one over close to the Palm Beach Airport. You can look at one of the Palm Beach Airport. It's not active, or it's active.
Oh, where's it?
It's active right now. Palm Beach is on top. Go north. Yeah, on the right side. Over here on the right side.
Oh, I see it.
Oh, you see it? The small one? Yeah, this is an active TFR.
Oh, okay.
And it says active.
Yep, it is an active TFR.
It's a
from
Mar-a-Lago,
surface.
where actually the Trump stays.
Yep. Awesome.
That's what the CFI with the student hit.
Oh God. Can you imagine? Now, what is this little flag right here?
This is our VFR checkpoint.
Yep, VFR checkpoint.
When you're approaching any airport, controlled airport, you can use this checkpoint as your location, so they exactly know where you're at.
Okay. So what is this dashed purple, dashed pink, dashed
This is
purple?
Marian MOA.
Okay. Do I need a clearance to punch through this?
No, you just have to exercise extreme caution flying at the MOA area.
Okay. Let's decipher this real quick.
Okay.
How long roughly is the longest runway at this airport?
10,200.
Okay. What does this star mean?
This star, this is we have no, it's not a beacon for sure, but this is I think that this station only works during the certain period of hours, like day period of time.
Yep. So the tower is the tower has temporary hours, right? Or the tower is only in operation during certain hours. So what happens to this airspace when the tower closes? What airspace does it turn into?
Gulf airspace.
Awesome. So many students look at me like, what? It changes? I'm like, yeah, how are you going to get a clearance to enter it if it stays Delta? Like,
Right.
I'm going to call the tower. The tower's closed.
Yeah.
Well, then
that's why you have over the tower, you have the C.
Yep.
So it's a CTAF frequency, and you use it as a frequency when you're approaching. When you're 10 nautical miles away from the airport, you just turn on this CTAF and you just listen to CTAF. and what people talks and what runway they use actually, because you may fly over there and you see the wind that blows from one direction. Probably you're supposed to use one runway, but as you connect them, you see that the people use the other one.
Yep.
So you're supposed to go and use the runway that everybody uses, not the one that is correct right now because of the wind.
Yep. Awesome. What does this star mean?
I don't remember.
All right. This one is just there's something about the lighting in the AFD. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be pilot controlled lighting. All right.
Okay.
That it's not always going to be pilot controlled lighting. It means that there is sometimes lighting.
Got it.
All right. So we talked a little bit about weather. Let's dig a little bit more. What are the three things I need for a thunderstorm?
The three things you need to for the thunderstorm. First is an unstable condition. Then it's gonna be a lot of moisture and updraft.
All right, awesome. How do I know the mature stage of a thunderstorm has started?
Mature stage usually goes with an updraft and downdraft.
Okay.
So the start of the mature stage is usually the beginning of the downdraft. So the rain.
Yep. So
the rain starts. Usually it's heavy rain.
Yep. So when rain hits the ground is usually the first indication of the mature stage. So let's get into some of the questions that you missed during your written. Passenger briefing was one of them, and passenger briefings are kind of a big deal. What items are required to be in a passenger briefing?
We use like for passenger briefing, we use a safety acronym.
Okay.
It covers mostly like everything over there.
Talk to me like I'm a passenger. Give me the safety acronym briefing.
So we use a safety briefing, safety acronym for this, which is S is seat belts. They're supposed to be tightened all the way during our flight, and we also have shoulder harnesses. They must be tightened during our taxi, takeoff, and landing. But we require them to have them all the time as well for our safety. A is on air vents. So we have air vents. I have to show the air vents to the passengers. If you feel yourself uncomfortable, just put more air inside or like close the air vents if it's too much for you. Then F is a fire extinguisher. I have to show where the fire extinguisher is located in case of the fire and emergency. We just grab the fire extinguisher, check the fire extinguisher is up to date and it's in a green zone, so we can use it. So it's not empty or like out of date and it's not working. And then T, it's a talks in traffic. So we are not talking too much because we all interconnected with our headphones. So because I have to listen to ADC and to the traffic if we are flying somewhere, and also looking for the traffic outside of the window. For example, if you see something, say something. If you mention the traffic is coming somewhere from, for example, right direction, you're staring at the window, you see something, just let me know. Don't mention that I know about it, and why if you have any questions.
Awesome. So there's a couple things I'd be a little bit more clear on. All right. Seatbelts, a lot of airplane seatbelts don't function the same as cars. And a lot of passengers have never been in a small airplane. Okay. So to use a seatbelt, insert the metal buckle into insert the metal tab into the metal buckle, lift up on the top of the buckle to release. Air vents, they're to your left and right, twist left to open, twist right to close. Fire extinguisher, it's going to be underneath your seat. In the event of a fire, I will fly the plane. You will fight the fire. Can you do this? Ask your passenger. Can you do this? Do you know how to operate a fire extinguisher? Because the last thing you want to do is that happen and the passenger go, how does a fire extinguisher work?
All right.
Okay. Ask them.
I have to explain everything.
Okay. The emergency exits, they're the same doors that you came in. Okay. If for some reason you can't get that door open, you can kick the window out. Crack the doors. If we end up in an emergency where we're going to be landing in a field, crack the doors open before we touch down.
Yes, open the doors. Yeah, before the touchdown, right?
Yep. There is no talking during critical phases of flight like taxi, takeoff, landing, or any operations below 3,000 feet or emergencies. what are your questions? I always ask, what are your questions, as opposed to do you have any? Because what are your questions gives the implication that there is obviously something they're going to ask. Um, so that's the big takeaway. Explain it. Okay. They need to know when they need to use it, how to use it, um, and ask them if they can. Because if they are like, hey, I don't know how to use a fire extinguisher. I'm missing my hands. I can't use a fire extinguisher. Um, maybe swap out the passenger, or, build some kind of way to go through that. We talked about AFDs. We talked about that. We talked about radio communication. We talked about ground effect. Crosswind, wind corrections during approach to landing and takeoff. If I have a crosswind from my right, what am I going to do with the controls during takeoff?
Right.
Yep, I'm going to go to
the yoke goes right.
Yep, I'm going to go to the right.
To the right, to the direction of the wind.
Yep. So if I'm coming in for a crosswind landing, okay, I've got about a 10 knot wind from my right. Then which way is the nose going to point? Right. Without you adjust, yep, it's going to point to the right. So what am I going to do to correct for this?
Left rudder.
Left rudder. And if I just put left rudder in, what's going to happen to my airplane?
Well, it's just going to go left, but I have to use the right ailerons.
Okay, so left rudder and right aileron would be the full
right
correct
aileron
answer.
First, and then left rudder to correct.
I usually go with the rudder first, because when you have your rudder in, then you point your nose and then use your ailerons to kind of go side to side.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But if whatever you've been using, if it works, it works. Okay. Unusual attitude was one of the other ones that you kind of struggled with, right? On your written. What physiological factors could lead to spatial disorientation and unusual attitudes? Like if I'm flying around and that's an instrument one. I don't like that one. If my nose is high on an unusual attitude, right? My nose ended up just high for some reason. What am I going to do first?
Put the nose down.
Okay. Power too.
And power.
Yep.
Now,
get the
first
power.
Thing, put the nose down.
Yep.
Then power. That's the second thing.
All right. I'm pretty happy with that. We went over a couple of those questions. What questions do you have for me? I think you're pretty ready. We covered some of the things that I was a little concerned about. I feel like we solved them. But do you have any questions beyond, what we covered, the things you already asked?
Well, I think the only one thing where I can actually struggle over there is some sort of things with the weather.
Okay.
Maybe because weather is a huge paragraph over there, and usually students struggles with the weather because it's a lot of information over there, especially with all the kind of fronts and stuff. And looking at the weather map, if he's gonna dip inside, what does this line go do? Okay. Why this line over here? I don't know if I can explain everything over there.
All right, let's go look at some decision supporting imagery. All right. Camera. Nope, not copy. Open image in new tab. Awesome. So I'm looking at this chart, right?
All right.
What does this chart show me? What is this chart used for? What kind of weather am I expecting to learn about on this chart?
So everywhere outside of this line with 160, everything looks fine for me. I don't think we're gonna have any problems. This line with 160, and we have one more on top with 120, I believe. We have a legend underneath that we can actually see what's going on over there, right over here.
Okay, so what does it mean?
We have a freezing level, so we have to stay away from this level if we don't want to go into freezing condition. 160 is kind of high for general aviation, so I don't think I'm gonna hit this with my airplane anyway. So it shows us the freezing level and any other bad condition that may occur.
Okay, so yeah, I mean this is really just
like visibility problem over here, right? With the blue ones.
Yep.
And also it shows us what's the flight level.
Yep. Awesome. So it's pretty straightforward, right? This chart's not Not difficult, right?
Yes.
I'm um ooh, what's this one?
This one on 070.
Yep.
This is a PyRep, I believe, part of a PyRep. So it's or not a PyRep, but it shows us the
Well, let's look at the key. What's it telling us? So it's purple. It's orange. It's dashed
Oh
orange.
no, I was thinking about you're talking about this 070 on top of it.
That is what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
this thing. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So
So
this one is moderate rate turbulence. So
yep.
that's 070 is also showing us the turbulence.
Yep. So it's showing us the moderate turbulence
Moderate turbulence at
at
level
7,000
070.
feet.
7,000.
Yep.
So you better avoid it.
Yeah. So like don't go there, right? You might get some pretty bad turbulence, right? Mid levels probably. Yeah, you don't.
Oh,
It's for jets. It's for jets.
okay.
Yeah. You're technically they could ask you about it, but I mean, if a DPE starts asking you about a mid-level prognostic chart, they're just trying to find something to fail you on at that point. So I've got reports, forecasts, reports and forecasts.
Yes.
What's the difference between a report and a forecast?
So report is what actually happening right now, and the forecast is that the prediction what's gonna be in the future.
Okay, so I've got two different reports right here. I've got a METAR and a PIREP. Which one of these do you think would be most accurate?
PyRep.
Yep, it's definitely going to be a PIREP. So let's go down near you. No, that's not an airport. That's not an airport. What is what is that airport's identifier?
KHWO.
KHWO. That's what it is.
Yep.
All right. What is this PIREP telling me?
Okay, so this PyRep is a regular one. UA tells us it's a, regular one. OV it's over. This is a location of it. MLB means the location of the VOR transponder, which radio and how far. TM means the time, Zulu time 1736, flight level 320, type of aircraft, which is a CRJ 7. Yeah, CRJ 7 is a type of aircraft. It says that it's a turbulence over there, light chop.
Yep.
So it's a light turbulence.
Occasional light chop.
Occasional light chop.
Yep. So chop is rhythmic, turbulence isn't. So turbulence, chop.
Okay. Okay.
All right. That's the easiest way to explain it.
Okay. So it's kind of same turbulence. It's just a different type of it.
Yeah, yeah. So like if I'm saying turbulence, like, hey, I'm getting rocked real quick, then rocked again, and then nothing, and then rocked, nothing. But chop, it's just like we're just rocking.
Yeah, I hit a turbulence that name wind shear. I hit a wind shear on my first solo during my second landing.
That's
on my final, and that was kind of scary.
Yeah, it'll happen. All right. Well, we already talked about TAFs. You know how to read a TAF.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one? Prog charts.
Oh, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is the one that's kind of concerning, right?
This is I don't want to look at.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. A lot of people look at this and see it as like, I need to know exactly what's going on, where every letter is, where every line is. This is big overarching ideas. Okay, this is big ideas is what this chart is really telling us. Okay? It's telling me what kind of big movements of weather am I going to see. So I'm going to see, I'm going to see high pressure versus low pressure. What kind of weather do I expect in a low pressure area? Good or bad? Bad, right? I'm expecting.
You don't want to fly in a low pressure, right?
Exactly.
High pressure is the best thing to fly.
Exactly. So, I mean, along when a cold front and a warm front are starting to meet each other, kind of like right here, what am I going to expect here?
A little front.
Okay. Well, sure, give it the fancy
Or any
name. I don't.
front, like
Yeah,
any front, we can expect that, yes, when the air mass, like the cold air mass and hot air mass meet each other, they create a front.
right.
So any front is bad for aviation. Any front.
Yeah, so any front is going to cause me some bad weather. When they start to meet each other like this, they kind of they could hang out more often, right? They could kind of sit
Yes.
there longer. So I'm expecting more showers. I'm expecting more continuous rain, right? Um, that's it. Pretty straightforward, ain't it?
Right.
So no need to be afraid of this. I use this chart all the time for planning farther out. Okay.
Okay.
So for example, I'm going to be flying to some islands. You know, me and my wife are going to be flying to these islands up here
All right.
in about a week or in about 3 or 4 days. Okay. So I'm going to use this chart and I'm going to drag this out a couple days so that I can see. Oh,
Oh,
look,
it's clear.
there's going to be some high pressure there. It looks like, depending on how long
Okay.
I'm going to stay, I might have to
Yeah.
worry about some weather on my way out. So, like, maybe I should readjust my plan. Maybe I should go there sooner, right? Because it looks like if I leave in like 2 days, a high pressure is going to be moving right in through, and I can stay for a couple more days before I'm worried about that low pressure. That's what this chart is for. They're not asking, like, well, if I'm in Michigan, what would the dew point spread be? I have no idea. And it doesn't
Okay.
matter. Okay.
Yes.
And look, the legend is right there.
Yeah, the legend shows everything. If you're like struggling with something, just go into the legend. The
Exactly.
bad thing about the ForeFlight, they don't have the legend.
And that's one of the things to be a little bit concerned about, right?
Yes, so you can see the weather over the ForeFlight. It's going to show you the same exact map, but you do not have the legend over there. I don't know why.
What I could recommend, download the legend into your ForeFlight.
Ah, all right.
Right? Go find a PDF version and put it in your ForeFlight so you could say, oh, I forget that one. Let me go check the legend. And it's
The legend,
still in
right.
ForeFlight. And they're like, oh, well, he's got the sources right there readily available.
Anyway, you use this during the flight preparation, not when you're already flying, right? So you always have the internet. You can always go to aviationweather.gov and just go in and look at it.
Okay, so I wouldn't ever say that on a check ride that you will always have internet. All right. There's nothing stopping you from flying outside of internet coverage.
Okay, got it.
I've flown outside of internet coverage. Me and some buddies, we flew up to, like, we actually plan on going to this island right here. You
Okay.
think I got internet here?
No.
Okay.
But you still can.
Yeah, you still can, right? But I need to be able to look at a chart like this saying that, let's
I know
say
that people installs this
Starlink.
internet from Starlink, right?
Yep.
They install just Starlink, so they have internet all the time.
Yep. I have seen that. It's like $400 and then like $400 a month. It's ridiculous. But I'm not concerned about your deciphering of this chart. All right.
What's the brown line shows?
The brown line? Let's click on it. Ooh.
Legend. It's not dust. Severe. No, it's not.
No.
This is symbols. Weather symbols.
Oh God, that one is rough. I'm gonna have to let's do this. Brown line Prague. Here we go. It's a trough.
Okay.
How did I forget that? How did I forget that? I'm a little embarrassed of that now. It's a trough.
What's the trough shows?
It's showing a line of low pressure.
Okay.
Okay. So as we can see, we've got a trough right here. This is a better way to decipher it. We've got a trough right here. So it's low pressure. Here's the high pressure. Here's the tops of the trough over here.
Okay.
And here's the...
So do not fly as well through this troughs.
Well,
low pressure troughs.
Yeah, it's really just a line of low pressure. How did I forget that? That is so embarrassing. I'm going to edit this part out.
Got it.
Yeah. What are these gray lines right here?
Okay, I know the thing that isobars, right?
Yep.
They are isobars, and the closer they are to each other, the higher a wing we have inside those.
Yep.
So the more distance, the lower the wind it is.
Yep. Perfect. I say, if I'm to be honest, I say you're ready. Other than the few, like we corrected the things that you got wrong and the things that were concerning. So as long as you maintain those corrections, you are ready to go take your check ride, which at 42 hours is fairly impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have any other questions,
It actually 40 hours. Like as I said, like 2
Yeah.
hours and a half are discovery flights.
Yep. So, yeah, good luck. Now, if you look in the Discord, I don't know if you've used Discord before. I'm assuming, given that
No.
you're on. Oh no. So Discord, it's think of it as almost like a chat room or whatnot.
I use Telegram for that.
Yeah. So this is Telegram. It's just different Telegram. Okay. But I do have. If you look up through some of the channels on there, you can see I've got a check ride gouge section. Right? What that is, that's a bunch of other students that came in and went and took check rides, and then came back and told us how the check ride went.
I already
Okay.
saw that. Yeah, actually, yesterday evening when I was preparing, I saw that and I went through one of those check rides and see what were the questions, like what the tricky questions over there.
Exactly.
And some of them were kind of tricky for me as well. If the DP is going to ask me those kind of questions, that would be very hard.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, come back and like when you do go take your check ride, come back and fill us in on how it went, because that's how I update these things. That's how I make them better. Because I want them to be as accurate to what the DPEs are out there doing. And if the students don't come back and tell me what the DPEs are doing, I don't know what's going on out there.
Of course, I will.
Other than that, there's like 3 other instructors in here. They're labeled with blue text or a blue dot next to their name. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. I will.
You enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.